My son waited until I had a paper plate balanced on my knee and barbecue sauce on my thumb before he gave away my house. Nolan tapped a spoon against his beer bottle, which was the kind of thing people did in movies and the kind of thing that made my old coworkers go quiet out of professional habit. For 42 years, a metallic clink at the transit garage usually meant somebody had dropped a wrench into somewhere expensive. Before everybody starts disappearing, Nolan said, "I've got one more surprise for Dad." He stood beneath the maple tree in my backyard, smiling like a man who had already seen the ending. My wife, Lena, sat beside me. Our daughter, Brooke, was across the patio with her arms folded loosely, watching her brother reach behind a chair and pull out a cardboard tube. Nolan unrolled a glossy architectural rendering. It was my house. Same brick chimney, same wide porch. Same upstairs windows Lena had cursed while washing from a ladder until I bought her an extension pole. But a brushed steel sign stood in the flower bed where her peonies grew. Nolan Mercer Design. Now that Dad's officially retired, Nolan said, "The Mercer house is starting its next chapter. It's going to become our new company headquarters." People applauded. Lena's hand stopped halfway to mine. I stared at the picture, then at my son. "And where," I asked, "do you think your mother and I are going to live?" The applause died in pieces. Nolan gave a small laugh, like I had fed him a line we had rehearsed. "The condo. Low maintenance, no stairs, lock the door, and travel whenever you want." "You two have been talking about it forever." "I've been talking about fixing the upstairs toilet forever too," I said. "That doesn't mean I expect to wake up Monday in a plumbing supply warehouse." A couple of the bus mechanics laughed before realizing nobody in my family had. Nolan lowered the rendering an inch. "Dad." "What condo?" Beside me, Lena set her plastic cup on the patio table very carefully. The ice clicked against the side. She had that stillness she got when she was deciding which fire would spread fastest if she chose the wrong one first. Our yard was full of people I had known for most of my adult life. Men who had seen me crawl under buses in January slush. Women from dispatch who had covered for me when Nolan broke his wrist at 19 and insisted he could still drive himself home. Neighbors who knew which section of our fence leaned after heavy rain. They all suddenly found intense interest in potato salad, folding chairs, and a moth circling the porch light. Nolan rolled the paper halfway closed, then stopped, perhaps worried that retreat would look worse than persistence. "Okay," he said. "Clearly this isn't the moment to get into the details. You picked the moment. It was supposed to be a tribute." Brooke spoke from across the patio. "Most tributes don't need a change of address form." Nolan glanced at her. "Thank you, Brooke." "You're welcome. I have more." I wiped my thumb on a napkin and put my plate on the ground beneath my chair. Our old beagle had been dead 6 years, but some habits stayed ready longer than they were useful. There was no dog to clean up what I couldn't finish. No crew supervisor waiting for me to decide what happened next. Just me, 67 years old as of March, officially retired for 3 hours, sitting in a yard where my son had announced that the walls around my life were now available for commercial use. My friend Calvin Rhodes stood near the grill, holding the retirement plaque the city had given me. It said my steadfast leadership had kept the city moving, which was generous considering how often the city had remained parked behind the depot while we waited for parts. Calvin lifted the plaque slightly. "Want me to put this somewhere, Ray? Kitchen counter's fine." Nolan nodded too quickly. "Actually, the kitchen's one of the things we wouldn't change much. Maybe update the lighting." That was when Lena stood up. "All right," she said. Not loud, but Lena had spent 31 years answering phones in a medical office. She could stop nonsense without disturbing the magazines. "There is more pie in the kitchen. Ray still has cards to open. Nolan is done presenting real estate concepts for the evening." "It's not a concept," Nolan said. She turned her head. He rolled the rendering the rest of the way. Calvin looked at me. "You want help with those cards? I think I can operate an envelope. Always admired that about you." He took his wife's elbow, and the two of them moved toward the kitchen. That gave everyone else permission. Conversations restarted, too bright and too quick. Within 30 seconds, the yard sounded like a restaurant where somebody had dropped a tray, and nobody wanted the waiter to feel bad. Brooke came over and picked up my abandoned plate. "You okay?" she asked. "I've had better retirement gifts. I gave you a bird feeder. I know. It moved into second place without doing anything." Her mouth twitched, but her eyes stayed on Nolan. He was near the maple tree, talking to Lena with his chin tucked down. He did that when he wanted to appear reasonable. Even as a grown man, Nolan could turn his face into the picture of somebody being unfairly asked to account for a fire while still holding the matches. Brooke handed me a fresh napkin. Did Mom know? I don't know. That's not a comforting answer. It wasn't designed to be. She looked toward the house. He brought a rendering. I noticed. A professional one. I also noticed the steel sign where your mother's peonies are. That's where he lost her. He may have lost both kneecaps. She's deciding. Nolan's business partner had once told me that clients trusted him because he could walk into an empty room and make them see what it might become. I had been proud when I heard that. At the time, I hadn't considered what happened when the room wasn't empty. People began leaving earlier than they otherwise would have. They hugged me with the solemnity usually reserved for medical diagnoses. Several said retirement was going to be an adjustment, though their eyes kept sliding toward Nolan. Calvin shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug and whispered, "You need a place to hide a body? Garage Bay 4 still has a bad camera. I spent half my career trying to get you to stop saying things like that at work. And now you're retired, so my job is done." Lena stood at the back gate thanking people. Her smile worked, but only from the nose down. Nolan had disappeared into the house. Brooke carried trash bags around the patio with sharp, efficient movements. I collected empty bottles because bottles were easier than questions. Brown in one bin, clear in another. The city had given me a gold watch even though nobody wore watches anymore, and Nolan had given me a preview of my own eviction. Between the two, the bird feeder was winning by a mile. When only family remained, I found the rendering on the kitchen counter beside my plaque. Nolan had left it open. The picture showed pale desks arranged through our dining room, sleek computers in the spare bedrooms, and a glass conference table where Lena's grandmother's oak table stood now. Tiny figures and expensive clothes occupied the rooms. None of them were us. I folded the rendering in half. Nolan was at the sink, rinsing beer bottles before putting them in the recycling. He got that from Lena. He could be thoughtless on a grand scale and considerate about labels. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "It was taking up the counter. I mean, fold it. It's a picture of my house, Nolan. I know what it looks like." He shut off the faucet. At 39, he had my height and Lena's ability to hold eye contact until the other person felt underdressed. His hair was clipped close at the sides, and he wore a blue shirt that probably had a name more complicated than blue. There was a dark spot near his cuff where barbecue sauce had landed. "I thought you'd be excited." "About what part?" "The company coming back here. Full circle. The company was never here. I started in the garage. You stored carpet samples in the garage. You started at our dining room table because you didn't own a dining room table." "Exactly." "No, those are different sentences." Lena entered carrying a bowl of melting ice. Brooke followed with the trash bags. "Put those by the back door," Lena told her. Brooke did, then leaned against the refrigerator. "I can leave if this is going to be private." Nolan let out a breath. "That would be great." "I was asking Dad." "Stay," I said. Lena dumped the ice into the sink. "Everybody needs to stop choosing teams before we understand what happened." "I understand what happened," Nolan said. "I announced something we've been discussing for months, and Dad got blindsided because apparently nobody used the exact magic words. You never discussed turning the whole house into an office with me," I said. "I discussed it with Mom." Lena looked at him. "You discussed using the garage and the back bedroom temporarily. That was how it started. That was how it ended too." Nolan put both palms on the counter. "The space makes sense. My lease is up. You two don't need 4 bedrooms, and you've talked about downsizing every Thanksgiving since Brooke bought her place." Brooke raised a finger. "Please don't make my house an exhibit in your trial. You know what I mean? I usually do. That's the problem." Lena turned to me. "Ray, you told him he could always use the garage." "I told him that 8 years ago. You told me last month this house was too much work. The gutters were clogged. You said, maybe it's time we think about less house." "Thinking is not packing." "No," she said, "but you have a habit of saying half of something and acting shocked when the rest of us try to find the other half. That shut me up for a moment." Nolan nodded as if she had just validated the entire presentation. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Lena said. "I'm furious with you." His face changed. "Not much, but enough." She pointed toward the folded rendering. "You put your sign in my peonies. It was just a visual. You gave my dining room to 6 imaginary people in black jackets. The furniture layout isn't final. Brooke made a small sound that might have been a laugh choking to death. Nolan pushed away from the counter. This is getting ridiculous. It got ridiculous under the maple tree, I said. I was trying to honor you. You could have bought me a bird feeder. I built something out of what you taught me. And that means you get the house? It means I thought you'd want to help. There it was, not a demand, help. The old family word that could carry almost anything on its back. Lena rubbed 2 fingers against her temple. Nolan, go home. Ray and I need to talk. I need measurements tomorrow morning. No, I said. The contractor only has a window at 9. No. Nolan looked at Lena, but she had turned toward the sink. Dad, I can't just undo this because you're having a reaction. A reaction is swelling after a bee sting. I am telling you no. His jaw tightened. For the first time all night, the polished confidence slipped, and I saw something underneath it that looked less like arrogance than fear. I already gave notice on my office, he said. The kitchen went quiet. Brooke straightened away from the refrigerator. Lena turned slowly. I looked at my son, at the wet bottles lying neatly beside the sink, and at the folded picture of my house between us. Then I said, "You'd better tell me what else you've done." Nolan looked down at the counter as if the rest of what he had done might be written in the wet rings beneath the beer bottles. The building changed hands, he said. The new owner offered us an early release. How early? Our last day is the end of this month. Lena stared at him. You said your lease was becoming a problem. You didn't say you had canceled it. I had 48 hours to decide. And in those 48 hours, I said, you found time to hire somebody to draw my living room full of strangers, but not to call me? I did call. You called me Tuesday to ask whether I still had your grandfather's level. I called Mom. Lena planted both hands on the edge of the sink. You asked if the garage and back bedroom could get you through a rough patch. I said we could probably work something out. Right? Probably. You didn't sound uncertain, because I thought you meant 2 rooms, not our address. Nolan's eyes moved from her to me. The garage by itself doesn't work. We need a place to meet clients. We need power, internet, a bathroom people can find without passing a lawnmower. Once we started looking at it seriously, the house made more sense. Brooke shook her head. You keep saying, we. Who is we? My team. So your team looked at our parents' house seriously. On plans. Plans you had made. Preliminary plans. I picked up the folded rendering and opened it again. Up close, I could see details I had missed outside. The front porch railing had been painted black. The round table Lena kept beneath the dining room window was gone. There was a reception desk in the front hall, exactly where I sat to pull off my work boots when my knees were complaining. In the upper corner, in small gray type, was an address line and the word proposed. Who gave them the measurements? I asked. Nolan hesitated just long enough. Mom sent me the old listing. Lena's head snapped toward him. You asked because you wanted to estimate what new windows would cost us. I was helping. You were measuring. It can be both. I laid the paper back down. What else? He rubbed the heel of his hand along his jaw. I told the staff we'd be remote for a week, then transition here. How many staff? 7, 8 with me. 7 people think they're coming to work in our house? It's temporary while we stabilize. The sign and the flowers looked fairly stable. The sign was aspirational. Brooke folded her arms again. That's a very designer way to say imaginary. Nolan ignored her. I also had the website refresh scheduled, but that hasn't gone live. Using this address, Lena asked. We need a business address. You have one until the end of the month. The new campaign launches Monday. I waited. He looked away. Some of the print material is already done. The refrigerator motor kicked on. Somewhere outside, a glass bottle tipped over in the recycling bin with a soft clunk. What print material? I asked. Brochures, new client packets, nothing that can't be corrected. If it can be corrected, correct it. You're not listening. I am listening very closely. That seems to be what's making this worse. Nolan's face reddened. I had seen that color on him at 12, at 23, and the afternoon 3 years ago when a subcontractor had walked off one of his projects. Nolan didn't like being angry. He liked anger even less when another person could see it arrive. I made a business decision based on conversations this family has had for years, he said. You complain about the stairs. Mom complains about the yard. Every holiday, one of you mentions moving somewhere smaller. Then I find a way for the house to stay in the family and support something you helped me build. And suddenly, I'm some kind of thief. No one called you a thief, Lena said. You don't have to. Brooke picked up one of the damp bottles and peeled at the label. You know why you announced it outside? Nolan gave her a warning look. Don't. Because if you'd asked in this kitchen, Dad could say no. I thought he'd be proud. You thought he'd be trapped. Brooke. What? He had 50 people in the yard. Half of them had just made speeches about how generous he is. That wasn't an accident. Nolan pushed away from the counter so hard his hip struck a drawer handle. This is why I didn't want you involved. I'm not involved. You tried to move an office into Mom and Dad's house during a party I happened to attend. You always assume the worst of me. No, I assume you've made a plan. Usually I'm right. Enough, Lena said. Brooke dropped the bottle into the bin. Nolan stared at the floor. I noticed my retirement watch was still in its box near the coffee maker. Lena had set it there when we brought things in from the yard. The box was dark blue, with the city seal stamped in silver. 42 years reduced to something I would forget to wind. What did the contractor think he was measuring tomorrow? I asked. Nolan's shoulders lowered a fraction. Just what it would take to make the rooms workable. Which rooms? The garage, back bedroom, dining room, possibly the front room, but that depends on electrical. No, Dad, he's not starting work. He's not measuring either. It's information. He can gather it somewhere else. Nolan pressed his lips together. Lena didn't step in. That seemed to hurt him more than anything I had said. So that's it? He asked. I make one mistake in how I present it, and you shut the whole thing down? You didn't make a mistake presenting it. You presented exactly what you planned. Fine. I moved too fast. You moved us. His eyes flashed. Nobody is putting you on the street. That's comforting. The condo idea came from you. An idea is not an address. You'd rather keep 4 mostly empty bedrooms because you can than help your own son through a transition? There were a dozen things I could have said. I could have reminded him about the year his company van sat in our driveway because he couldn't afford storage. I could have listed the Saturdays I spent hanging drywall in his first rented office, or the winter Lena answered his business phone because his receptionist quit. That was the trouble with favors kept too carefully. Eventually, they became ammunition. So I said, "Go home, Nolan." He looked at Lena. "Mom?" She met his eyes. "Your father and I need to talk. Do you agree with him?" "I agree that you're not bringing a contractor here tomorrow. That's not what I asked. It's what I answered." He grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair. For a second, I thought he might take the rendering. He left it on the counter. At the kitchen doorway, he stopped beside Brooke. "Happy?" "No," she said. "That may be another thing you don't understand." He went out through the front door. The storm door snapped behind him because I had never adjusted the closer properly. After spending 4 decades fixing things for a living, I had developed a remarkable tolerance for flaws in my own house. Brooke waited until his car started. "I'm going too," she said. Lena looked exhausted. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. If I stay, one of you will ask me what the other one meant, and I'm retiring from that job." I almost smiled. "Runs in the family." "I'm serious, Dad. I know." She picked up her purse from the dining room. Before leaving, she hugged Lena, then put a hand on my shoulder. "The bird seed is in the box with the feeder," she said. "Not that anybody's thinking about that. Still the best gift I got. Low bar." She left by the same door, catching it before it snapped. Lena and I stood in the kitchen with the remains of the party. Foil covered 3 pies on the table. My name was written in blue frosting on half a sheet cake, though somebody had taken the section with the R, so it now congratulated AY. 2 trash bags waited by the back door. Through the window, folding chairs sat crooked across the lawn. I reached for the rendering. "Leave it," Lena said. I stopped. She pulled out a chair and sat. "Did you mean it? What? When you said no?" "Yes." "To all of it? Even the garage and back room?" "I don't know. You sounded like you knew. I know my house isn't becoming an office." Her eyes lifted to mine. "What? You keep calling it that." "Calling it what?" "Your house." I looked around the kitchen. I had hung those cabinets with my father. I had replaced the floor after a dishwasher leak. I knew which outlet sparked if you pulled a plug sideways and which window swelled in August. "Our house," I said. "You didn't say our—" "I'm angry. So am I. I still know I live here. That's not what I meant. It may not be what you meant, Ray, but it's what you've said 3 times tonight." I sat across from her. "You think I'm doing the same thing he did?" "No." Nolan announced that we were leaving. You're announcing that we're staying. Neither one of you has asked me what I want. Do you want to leave? She looked toward the dark window over the sink. Her reflection floated there above the faucet, pale and tired. I want to be allowed to answer that without it becoming evidence for one of you. I leaned back. The chair creaked under me. I didn't know you sent him the listing. I didn't know why he wanted it. That makes me feel foolish enough without your help. I wasn't trying to make you feel foolish. You don't have to try. You just go quiet and let everybody stand around wondering what sentence you're refusing to say. That's not fair. No, she said. Tonight wasn't fair. We cleaned up without resolving anything. Lena wrapped the cake. I carried chairs into the garage. When I came back, she had placed my city plaque on top of the folded rendering, hiding the picture beneath 42 years of steadfast leadership. We went to bed in the same room and lay facing opposite walls. At 4:47 the next morning, my eyes opened before the alarm could ring. I reached to shut it off, then remembered I had nowhere to report. The realization should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like missing a step in the dark. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table while the house clicked and settled around me. Lena came down after 7, dressed but quiet. She poured a cup, kissed the air somewhere near my cheek, and went outside to inspect the damage to her flower beds from the party chairs. At 8:58, a white van stopped in front of the house. A man in work pants climbed out carrying a laser measure and a clipboard. Nolan got out of the passenger side. Lena came through the back door just as the bell rang. We looked at each other. You told him no, she said. I remember. The bell rang again. I opened the front door. Nolan stood on the porch wearing the same blue shirt, now wrinkled at the elbows. The contractor gave me a polite smile. Morning, Nolan said. This is Wes. We only need 20 minutes. Nolan can come in, I told Wes. The tape measure stays on the porch. Wes looked from Nolan to me, then down at the laser measure in his hand. I can wait in the van, he said. You don't have to wait at all, I told him. I'm sorry your morning got tied up in this. Nolan stepped between us, not blocking the door exactly, but making sure I couldn't close it without closing it on him. Wes drove 40 minutes. I can build the trip, Wes said. Nolan turned. That's not necessary. I wasn't asking permission. I liked Wes. He gave Lena a polite nod through the doorway, returned to his van, and drove away with the speed of a man who had learned not to linger around married couples, family businesses, or houses where somebody was measuring against the owner's will. Nolan watched the van disappear. That was embarrassing, he said. You'll recover. I told him you were expecting us. That was your second mistake this morning. He cleared the time. So did I. You're retired. The words came out before he could inspect them. His mouth closed. Lena folded her arms. Go ahead, Nolan. Explain why your father's time stopped being valuable yesterday. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, I said. You're just surprised you said it where I could hear. He stepped inside. I shut the door behind him. Nolan hadn't changed his shirt, though the creases suggested he had slept somewhere between badly and not at all. He smelled like coffee he had bought, rather than made. For a moment, I saw the boy who used to prepare for trouble by gathering arguments all night, as if enough of them could become innocents. I'm trying to keep 8 people working, he said. That is what I'm doing. I know I handled the announcement badly. You think? I was excited. I had this picture in my head of the firm operating out of the place where it began. You'd be around. Mom could help if she wanted. It would be a family thing. Lena stared at him. What would I help with? Nothing unless you wanted to. Reception, lunch, answering phones the way I did when you started. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He rubbed his forehead. Every sentence I say is being translated into the worst possible version. Maybe use smaller words, I said. Dad, please. That stopped me more effectively than shouting would have. Nolan almost never said please until he had exhausted every path that sounded like a plan. He walked into the front room and stood at the window. Outside, the white van's tires had left dark marks on the damp street. A paper plate from the party had escaped the trash and lodged beneath Lena's hydrangeas. My lease ends in 26 days, he said. The shared offices I've looked at can't put the team together. We have client materials that can't sit in a coffee shop. 2 of my people already work from apartments where they don't have room for a desk. Celeste has been with me 6 years. Marcus turned down another offer in January because I told him we were stable. You weren't stable when you told him? We were until the building sold. Then tell them what happened. I will. But if everybody scatters for a month, I could lose them. I looked at Lena. She was watching Nolan, and I could see the part of her that had always reacted to a practical need before she had time to ask whether the need belonged to her. Nolan knew that part too. He had grown up inside it. How temporary, I asked. Lena turned to me. Ray, I'm asking. Nolan faced us. A month? 6 weeks at most? No, I said. You just asked. And you answered. 4 weeks. No. Dad, 2. He stopped. The garage and the back bedroom, I said. 2 weeks. Not 6 weeks that becomes 3 months. No clients, no contractors, no painting, signs, deliveries, furniture bolted to anything, or strangers wandering upstairs. Your people come through the side gate, use the downstairs bathroom, and leave by 5. Nolan blinked. You're serious? Unfortunately. The back bedroom won't hold everyone, then some work from home. The Wi-Fi in the garage barely reaches. You're welcome to bring in a temporary extender. We need a place to spread out plans. You have a garage. My samples already take up half of it. Your samples are why you're getting the garage, Lena said. Would either of you like to include me in the agreement happening in our front room? The word "our" landed cleanly. I turned to her. Do you want to let him use the 2 rooms for 2 weeks? She looked at Nolan. If I say no, what happens to your employees? He hesitated. I figure something else out. It was the correct answer, which meant he had to work to produce it. Lena nodded slowly. 2 weeks, the back bedroom and garage. Nothing leaves any other room unless Ray or I move it. You don't tell anybody we offered the whole house. You tell them it's emergency space, of course. And no company mail here. I already had some things, no? He let out a breath. Fine, say the date, I told him. What? The last day. He pulled out his phone, scrolled, and named the second Friday from then. 5 o'clock, I said. Yes. Not close of business, not after one final call. 5. Yes. I held out my hand. Nolan looked offended. I'm your son. That's why I'd like you to hear yourself agree. After a moment, he shook it. His palm was cold. Lena did not offer hers. You'll explain it to your staff before they arrive. I will. And you'll fix the brochures. His eyes flicked toward the kitchen, where the city plaque still covered the folded rendering. I'll handle it. He left without asking to measure anything. When his car was gone, Lena walked into the kitchen and lifted the plaque. She looked at the folded paper beneath it, but didn't open it. You folded quickly, she said. He has employees. He had employees last night. I needed to think. You thought for 12 minutes. I'm efficient. That isn't funny. It was a little funny. She put the plaque back. You made the decision because you couldn't stand the thought of those people paying for what Nolan did. They didn't give away our house. No. But you just volunteered part of it before asking me. I did ask you, after you negotiated him down. I leaned against the counter. Would your answer have been different? That's not the point. It matters some. It matters after the question. You keep wanting credit for arriving at a decent answer while driving over me to get there. I started to defend myself, then looked at the folded rendering under my plaque. The tiny people in black jackets had seemed offensive because somebody else had placed them in our rooms. I had just placed 7 real ones in 2 of those rooms and expected Lena to appreciate the improved terms. You're right, I said. She narrowed her eyes. What? I'm waiting for the part after that. There isn't one. There's always a part after that. You're right, but I still think 2 weeks is reasonable. There it is. I laughed despite myself. Lena didn't, but some of the pressure around her mouth eased. We spent the rest of the morning preparing the rooms we had supposedly agreed not to surrender. The back bedroom had become a collection point for things without a proper future. Winter blankets, an ironing board, 3 lamps, and boxes of photographs we kept promising to sort. Nolan's old trophies were on a high shelf, including one for a youth soccer season in which his team had lost every game but one. The trophy showed a gold man kicking confidently at nothing. In the garage, Nolan's sample books occupied 2 metal cabinets and a section beneath my workbench. I found tile squares, fabric cards, and 1 box labeled "Important Glass" that contained no glass and didn't appear important. Lena stood in the doorway. You don't have to clear the whole bench. They'll need a surface. You need a surface too. I've got time. The sentence sounded different now. She noticed. What were you planning to do today? Nothing. You were excited about that last week. Last week, nothing sounded quieter. She handed me a dust cloth. You could put up Brooke's bird feeder. I found it still boxed beside my retirement cards. Brooke had chosen a cedar feeder shaped like a small cabin, sturdy enough to survive weather and unattractive enough that no one would steal it. I hung it from a metal pole near the kitchen window. Lena filled it while I adjusted the hook. For 15 minutes, we stood inside drinking coffee and waiting for a bird to validate us. Nothing came. Maybe they're at work, I said. Lena smiled into her cup. It was the first time since the party. Nolan emailed that afternoon. The subject line read, "Temporary office logistics," with temporary in capital letters, as if he deserved recognition. He listed 7 employee names, arrival times, equipment, and 2 emergency contacts. Celeste would arrive at 8, Marcus at 8:30, the rest between 9 and 10. At the bottom, he wrote, "Thank you both." I mean that. Lena read it over my shoulder. He listed a printer, she said. Printers are legal in garages. Not that one. It weighs 80 pounds. You can tell from an email? I ordered office equipment for 31 years. That printer is a refrigerator that makes paper. At 7:43 on Monday morning, Celeste rang the side bell. She was a compact woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair, red glasses, and a cardboard tray of coffees balanced against her hip. Behind her, Nolan was unloading folding tables from his car. "I know we're early," she said. "He said family hours were flexible. Did he?" Her expression changed. "Not flexible? 8 means 8, but you're here now. I can stand outside for 17 minutes on principle. I'd respect it, but the coffee wouldn't." She smiled and held out one of the cups. Black, right? That annoyed me more than it should have. Nolan remembered how I took my coffee when he needed a door opened. By 8:30, the garage held 4 desks, 6 monitors, 1 enormous printer, and a nest of extension cords I wouldn't have allowed in a city break room. Celeste set up in the back bedroom. Marcus, a quiet man with a shaved head and immaculate white sneakers, thanked me twice for saving the transition. By 9, everyone knew where the bathroom was, but no one seemed to know the agreement. "Nolan said you offered this place," Marcus told me, while I showed him which garage outlet wouldn't trip the breaker. "He asked," I said. Marcus glanced at me, then decided the outlet was safer conversation. At 11, the wireless extender stopped working. At 11:15, rain began blowing under the garage door. I drove to the hardware store for weather stripping and came back 40 minutes later through the kitchen. Voices came from the dining room. 6 laptops covered Lena's grandmother's oak table. Rolled plans rested against her china cabinet. Celeste sat beneath the window, speaking into a headset, while Marcus taped a power cord across the floor. Nolan looked up from the head of the table. "The garage connection died," he said. "This is just for today." Behind me, the back door opened. Lena walked in carrying groceries and stopped. One of the grocery bags sagged against Lena's arm. A bunch of celery slid out and hit the floor. Nobody moved. Celeste stopped talking into her headset. Marcus froze with a strip of black tape stretched between both hands. A younger woman at the far end of the table closed her laptop as if that might make it disappear. Lena looked at the celery, then at Nolan. "What," she asked, "is happening in my dining room?" "The connection in the garage went down," he said. "I heard you explain the weather to your father. We have a delivery deadline. So do I. I need that table for lunch." Nolan glanced at the covered pie plate and stack of mail on the sideboard. "You can eat in the kitchen." Lena shifted both bags into one arm, bent, and picked up the celery. "You have 10 minutes, she said. "Mom, 9. Celeste took off her headset. "We can move." "No, we can't," Nolan said. "The files are uploading. I can carry a laptop while it uploads. That is not how uploading works. It is if you don't close it." She gave him the kind of look an employee could give only after 6 years of knowing where the bodies were buried, professionally speaking. Then she began unplugging her power cord. The others followed. Chairs scraped. Marcus pulled up the tape he had just put down. In less than 2 minutes, the dining room became the site of an evacuation. Everybody apologized to Lena on the way through, which made Nolan's silence more obvious. The younger woman balanced 2 monitors against her chest. "Where should these go?" "Garage," Nolan said. "It's raining into the garage." I lifted the bag with the weather stripping. That's why I bought this. Nolan looked at me. Did you get another extender? No, I texted you. I was driving. I sent the model. I went for weather stripping. The extender was more important. To you. He took a breath through his nose. Okay. Can I use your computer to order one? No. Why? I don't know the password. It's your computer. That's why I've never needed it. Celeste laughed once, then covered it with a cough. We got everybody back into the agreed rooms. The garage door stayed shut against the rain, which turned the place warm and close with the smell of wet jackets, coffee, and the rubber floor mats I kept beneath the workbench. I installed the weather stripping, while 4 people stepped around me and tried to pretend I wasn't on my knees beside their shoes. Marcus crouched to hold one end. I can get that, I said. So can I. He kept it straight while I drove the screws. His white sneakers had picked up a gray streak from the garage floor. He noticed me noticing. My wife says they're an impractical cry for help. Your wife sounds observant. That's why I married her. He was easy to like. I resented him for it. Inside, Lena unpacked groceries harder than necessary. Cans struck the counter. The refrigerator door opened and shut, like punctuation. They're out, I said. For now. They were embarrassed. They should be. They didn't know. She stopped with a carton of eggs in her hand. Neither did I. I put the weather stripping scraps in the trash. I wasn't defending Nolan. You bought supplies for his office. I bought weather stripping for our garage. Because his employees were getting wet. Would you rather let rain blow in? I would rather not be turned into the unreasonable woman because I expect an agreement to last until lunch on the first day. I leaned against the sink. Nobody thinks you're unreasonable. 7 people just carried computers past me like I pulled a fire alarm. The egg carton was still in her hand. She looked down and set it on the counter. After a moment, I said, Celeste seems capable. She remembered my coffee order from 6 years ago. You don't drink coffee. She brought tea. That was Nolan. He could forget to ask whether we wanted to move and remember that his mother drank Earl Grey with milk. At noon, the employees ate in the garage with the door raised a foot for air. Nolan ordered sandwiches. He brought 2 into the kitchen for us and set them on the counter like a peace treaty. Turkey for Dad, chicken salad for Mom. I bought groceries, Lena said. Save them for dinner. We were going to have lunch at our table. We're not in there now. You're missing the point so consistently it's becoming impressive, I said. Nolan pulled out a chair and sat. His energy had changed since the morning. He looked tired, but the office noise seemed to feed him. Phones rang in the back bedroom. Somebody laughed in the garage. The printer made a heavy mechanical cough every 30 seconds. The new extender will be here this afternoon, he said. I paid for expedited delivery. To the office? I asked. He looked at me. To this house. You told Mom no company deliveries. It's one extender. One becomes a printer. The printer came with us. It has its own climate. Lena opened the chicken salad sandwich. Ray, stop admiring the printer. I don't admire it. I respect its mass. Nolan smiled despite himself. For half a minute, we sat around the kitchen table eating sandwiches as if the day had gone wrong in an ordinary way. It was almost pleasant. Then a phone rang in the dining room. All 3 of us turned. A black cell phone vibrated beside Lena's grandmother's bowl. Nolan stood. Somebody forgot it. He retrieved the phone, but his eyes went to the empty table and stayed there a moment too long. He wasn't seeing the oak, the shallow scratch from our 20th anniversary dinner, or the water ring I had made the year coasters temporarily became an issue in our marriage. He was seeing square footage. The next few days settled into a routine nobody had agreed to, but everyone began obeying. Celeste arrived at 8 exactly. Marcus came at 8:30, changed from his white sneakers into gray ones in the driveway, and kept both pairs spotless. Denise, the younger woman who had carried the monitors, brought a power strip long enough to reach across the garage without creating what she called a trip hazard with litigation energy. I learned their coffee cups by sight. I learned that the tall man named Joel took calls while walking in circles, and that Priya hummed when she was correcting someone else's work. I learned that the enormous printer dimmed the garage lights when it woke up. On Tuesday, the breaker tripped twice. Nolan stood over the panel with his phone flashlight until I moved him aside. The printer needs its own circuit, I said. Can we add one? No, not permanently. Electricity doesn't understand temporary. I redistributed the monitors and ran the printer off the laundry room outlet with a heavy cord. Nolan clapped me once on the shoulder. Knew we needed our facilities chief. The word chief warmed a place in me I didn't want warmed. 2 weeks, I said. I know. By Wednesday, people had started calling. Morning, Ray, through the open side door. Celeste left a cup of black coffee on my workbench. Marcus asked what I had done at the transit system, then actually listened to the answer. When I explained why cheap extension cords failed under continuous load, Denise took notes. Lena watched from the kitchen window. "You're enjoying this," she said when I came in. "I'm preventing a fire. You changed your shirt. I got dust on the other one. You put on the blue one Calvin gave you. It was on top." She spread cream cheese on a piece of toast. Nolan was right about one thing. That seems unlikely, but go on. You don't know what to do with yourself. I've been retired 4 days. 3. The party doesn't count. It counted to Nolan. She set down the knife. "I'm not criticizing you, Ray. It sounds organized enough to be criticism. I'm saying he walked in with a problem that made you useful before you had a chance to find out who you are when nobody needs something fixed." In the garage, the printer shuddered to life. The kitchen light blinked. Apparently, I'm the man keeping that thing from taking down the Eastern power grid. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Brooke came by Thursday with 2 containers of soup and found me installing a wall hook for the employees' jackets. She stood in the garage doorway, taking in the tables, monitors, sample books, and my workbench pushed against the far wall. "Wow," she said. "You got promoted from homeowner to maintenance. It's a hook. Today." I climbed down from the step stool. "Did you come to help your mother or inspect the occupation?" "I brought soup." "Then you're a humanitarian observer." Nolan emerged from the back bedroom. "Glad you could visit headquarters." Brooke looked at him. "That joke has a short life expectancy." He opened one of the soup containers. "Is this for everybody?" "It's for Mom and Dad." "There's enough. You don't know what it is. I can see soup. It might be poisoned. You'd label it." They smiled at each other, but only with their mouths. Growing up, they had fought openly, then become adults who could turn an argument into pleasant sentences nobody else was supposed to understand. Nolan took the soup into the kitchen anyway. Brooke looked at the wall hook. "Did he ask you to put that up?" Celeste's coat fell on the floor. "That's not what I asked. It took 5 minutes." She lowered her voice. "You know what's going to happen. He'll keep making one little problem at a time, and you'll solve them because each solution is easier than the fight. Then 2 weeks from now, he'll say everybody's settled and moving would hurt them. I know your brother. You know how to rescue him. That's different." I folded the step stool. She went on. "Then when I get angry, you'll ask me to be reasonable because Nolan has pressure or dreams or employees or whatever the emergency is this year. Nobody's asking you for anything. Not yet." There was enough history in those 2 words to fill the garage after the office left. Before I could answer, the front doorbell rang. Nobody used the front door. Family came through the kitchen, friends came through the side, and employees had been instructed to use the gate. I crossed the house and opened it. A woman in a cream-colored suit stood on the porch holding one of Nolan's new brochures. Behind her, a man was taking a photograph of the house with his phone. She checked the number beside the door, then smiled. "Good afternoon. We have a 1 o'clock with Nolan Mercer." I looked at the brochure in her hand. The cover showed one of Nolan's hotel projects, all creamstone and chairs nobody with a bad back would choose. In the lower corner, beneath his logo, was our address. "You're Andrea Bell," I said. Her smile held, though surprise moved behind it. "Yes." Nolan had mentioned Bell Hospitality during dinner 2 weeks earlier. 3 historic hotels, a possible renovation contract, and an owner who could detect uncertainty the way a dog smelled meat. "I'll get him. Are we early?" I checked the clock in the front hall, not according to the clock. The man behind her lowered his phone. He was younger, though not young, with a leather portfolio tucked under one arm. "I'm Thomas Vale," he said, "project manager, Ray Mercer." Andrea glanced past me into the front room. "This is a beautiful property, thank you." Nolan said it had history. "It does." She waited for me to invite them inside. I did not. Brooke appeared in the hall behind me. She saw the brochure, then Andrea, then the man standing in Lena's flower bed to get a wider photograph. Her eyebrows rose. "I'll find Nolan," she said. "You can wait on the porch," I told Andrea. "I'm afraid the meeting space isn't available." "Oh." It was a small word, but Nolan would have heard the entire future of his company inside it. Brooke returned with him before anyone had to attempt another sentence. He had removed the tape measure from his belt and was smoothing his hair with one hand. "Andrea," he said brightly. "Thomas, good to see you." Andrea held up the brochure. "We found you." "Yes." "About that, there's been a room conflict." Her eyes went to me. "We can meet at the Ashford," Nolan continued. "Their lounge is quiet this time of day, and it'll give you a chance to see how the millwork aged." "You confirmed this address yesterday," Andrea said. "I did. The conflict came up this morning. It was the kind of lie designed to be too small to challenge without becoming impolite." Brooke leaned one shoulder against the wall. I could feel her waiting to see whether I would help him carry it. I didn't. Andrea looked at Nolan for another second. "The Ashford is fine. Great. I'll drive. We'll follow." Thomas gave me a courteous nod. Andrea stepped off the porch, but paused beside the peonies. "Are these Sarah Bernhardt's?" she asked. "My wife would know. They're lovely." She walked to her car. Nolan remained on the porch. The pleasant expression stayed on his face until both car doors shut. "I'll be back in an hour," he said quietly. "You'll be back when the meeting's over." I didn't plan to deceive anybody. The brochure disagrees. I made that appointment before the party. You confirmed it yesterday. He looked past me at Brooke. "Of course you're still here." "She brought soup," I said. "Fantastic." He followed Andrea's car in his own. I closed the door. Brooke tapped one finger against her elbow. "How's the hook working?" "Don't. I'm asking about the hook. You're enjoying being right?" "No, Dad. I've had enough practice that the thrill is gone." Lena came out of the kitchen. "Who was at the door?" "Nolan's 1 o'clock," I said. Her face hardened. "Here? They've moved to the Ashford. I thought there were no clients. There aren't now. That is not an answer, I know." From the garage came the sound of phones, keyboards, and the enormous printer starting another digestive cycle. Nolan's employees kept working. I wondered how much they had heard. In a house, walls carried things offices had been designed to hide. Brooke picked up the soup containers. "I'm putting these in the refrigerator before somebody incorporates them." Lena followed her into the kitchen. I stood in the front hall, looking at the empty space where Nolan's rendering had placed a reception desk. The front room smelled faintly of the retirement flowers arranged on the mantel. Several cards still stood among them. One had a cartoon fisherman on the front, and the words, "Now you'll have time to do nothing." Through the window, I could see Thomas's footprints in the soil around the peonies. Nolan returned after 3. He came through the side gate, spoke briefly to Celeste, then found us in the kitchen. Brooke had left. Lena sat at the table with a bowl of soup in front of her, though she had stopped eating. "How did the meeting go?" I asked. "Fine. Fine, good, or fine, you don't want to discuss it. Andrea wants revisions by Tuesday." "Then fine, good." He remained standing. "I'm sorry they came here. That sounds like the weather did it. I'm sorry I scheduled them here." Lena put down her spoon. "Why?" "Because we needed a professional place to review the concept boards. And you decided our dining room was professional." "It is." That wasn't a compliment. Nolan pulled out a chair but didn't sit. "The appointment was on my calendar before we made the 2-week agreement. You confirmed it after," I said. "I thought one meeting wouldn't matter if you were out. Where did you think we'd be? At lunch? Running errands? Doing retired things?" "What is a retired thing?" "I don't know, Dad. I haven't had time to research it," Lena said. "We were supposed to make lunch in our kitchen and eat it at our table. That was our plan. I moved the meeting. After they arrived, I handled it." "No," she said. "Your father handled the front door. You handled being caught." Nolan sat then. His shoulders dropped. "I'm under a lot of pressure." "I believe you," I said. "It still isn't a key." "A key to what?" "Every room you need next." His mouth tightened. "If another client comes here," I continued, "the arrangement ends that day. If your people move into another room, it ends. If a contractor arrives, it ends. You've made that clear. I made it clear before today." I said, "I'm sorry." "You did. What else do you want?" "I want you to stop treating an apology like a receipt for the next purchase." Lena looked down at her soup. Nolan looked at me. For a moment, I thought he might stand and walk out. Instead, he nodded once. "Understood." He returned to the garage. He did not slam the door. Lena took another spoonful of soup, then set the spoon down again. "That was better," she said. "Better than what?" "Better than quietly fixing it and waiting for him to understand." He understood all right. You said what you wanted. I thought you hated when I did that. I hate when you decide for both of us. I don't hate knowing where you stand. Currently, I stand in a kitchen with cold soup. It's still warm. It was an emotional statement. She almost smiled. At 5, the employees began packing up. They left in an orderly line through the side gate, thanking us with a politeness that had begun to feel like rent nobody could collect. Marcus had changed back into his white sneakers. Denise carried 3 rolled plans under one arm and waved with the other. Celeste stayed behind to finish a print run. At 5:10, I went into the garage. The printer was pushing out sheets the size of placemats. Celeste stood beside it, feeding pages into a wide cardboard folder. "It's after 5, I said. "I know. I'm sorry. It jammed twice. Turn it off. Finish tomorrow. Nolan needs these tonight. Nolan needs a lot of things." She studied me over her red glasses, then pressed the power button. The printer wound down with a wounded mechanical sigh. "I'm sorry about Andrea," she said. "Did you schedule her?" I put it on the calendar. Nolan selected the location. He told us it was already arranged before the agreement. It was tentatively arranged. She hadn't confirmed. I nodded. Celeste slid the loose pages into the folder. She moved with care, aligning every corner. "Nolan's not careless," she said. "He's impulsive when he's scared, which can look the same from outside. You don't have to explain my son to me. No, I probably shouldn't." She picked up the folder, then paused. "For what it's worth, he talks about you all the time. What does he say? That you can fix anything, that you never panic, that when he started the firm, you were the only person who acted like he wasn't crazy." I picked a strip of discarded paper from the floor. "He also told your staff we offered him this house." Her face changed. "Marcus mentioned it," I said. "I'd like to know exactly what people think is happening here." Celeste held the folder against her chest. Through the open side door, late sunlight stretched across the driveway. "I thought this was the transition period," she said carefully. "Transition to what? The full space? When?" "After you and Lena moved." I let the paper strip fall into the trash. "Where did he say we were moving? He didn't give an address. He just said you decided it was time to downsize and that the company would operate here after the renovation." "When did he tell you that?" "At our staff meeting last Monday. A week before my retirement party." Celeste looked toward the kitchen door. "I assumed you knew." "So did everybody." "Yes." "And after the party?" He said there had been some family tension around timing, but the long-term plan hadn't changed. The garage seemed smaller. My workbench was pressed against the wall behind 4 folding tables. Nolan's sample cabinets blocked the shelves where I kept paint and solvents. Above them hung the new coat hook I had installed. Celeste adjusted her grip on the folder. "Ray, I don't want to be in the middle of this. You already are. So are 7 other people. I care about this company. I know. He cares about it too. I know that. He makes things sound settled because he thinks confidence is part of his job. At my house, confidence doesn't count as permission." "No," she said, "it shouldn't." She left through the side gate. Nolan did not return before dinner. At 6:30, he texted to say he was working at the Ashford and would pick up the printed plans in the morning. I typed 3 different replies and erased all of them. Lena read Celeste's account in silence. When I finished, she opened the cupboard, took down 2 glasses, and poured water into both. "He told his employees before he told us," she said. "He told them instead of us." She sat across from me. "Are you ending the 2 weeks?" "I don't know. That means you're thinking about the employees. They didn't lie. They're also the reason he knew you wouldn't throw everyone out." I looked through the dark kitchen window. The bird feeder hung motionless beneath the porch light. Not one bird had used it all week. "I'll give him one chance to tell them the truth himself," I said. "And if he won't, then I will." Nolan arrived at 7:45 the next morning, carrying pastries for the staff. I met him at the side gate before he could open it. "Put those down," I said. He looked at the pastry box, then at me. At 8 o'clock, I said, "You're going to tell every person in that garage exactly when this arrangement ends." His expression went blank. "And I'll be standing beside you while you do it." Nolan's fingers tightened around the pastry box. "You talked to Celeste. She talked to me. You went looking for information. I went looking for an employee who was still using our garage after 5. She had work to finish. So do you." His eyes shifted toward the house. Lena stood behind the screen door, visible enough that he knew this conversation had a witness. I was going to update everyone, he said. When? When I had another location. You told them the long-term plan hadn't changed. I was trying to keep people calm. With a story about your parents moving out. I didn't say you were packing this weekend. You said you were taking the house. Eventually, because I still thought that was something we might discuss once everybody cooled down. I looked at the pastry box. Grease had already darkened one corner. You announced it at my party, brought a contractor after I said no, moved your employees into the dining room, and scheduled a client here. What part of that was the discussion? I made mistakes. You keep using the plural like it makes each one smaller. A car turned onto our street. Marcus was behind the wheel, his white sneakers probably protected somewhere on the passenger side floor. Nolan saw him too. Dad, don't do this in front of them. I'm not doing anything in front of them. You are. They're already nervous. They should know why. You want to prove a point. I want every person working in that garage to know they'll need somewhere else to work next Friday. Nolan looked toward the approaching car, then back at me. The polished argument left his face. For a second, he was simply tired. Can I at least put the pastries inside? You can put them wherever they're allowed. He carried the box into the garage. At 8, 7 employees stood between the folding tables and my pushed-back workbench. Some held coffee. Denise had a notebook open. Joel kept glancing at his phone until Celeste reached over and turned it face down on the desk without asking. Nolan stood near the enormous printer. I stayed by the side door. Lena watched from the kitchen entrance, one hand around her tea. I need to clarify the situation here, Nolan began. I moved faster than I should have on a long-term idea for this property. Nobody moved. My parents agreed to let us use the garage and back bedroom as emergency space for 2 weeks. That agreement ends next Friday at 5. Marcus looked at Celeste. Priya stopped humming. Nolan continued. They are not currently planning to move. This is not becoming our permanent headquarters. The representations I made about that were premature. Premature? Brooke would have torn that word open and inspected the stuffing. I kept quiet. Denise lifted her pen. Where are we going after Friday? I'm looking at 3 options. Are any confirmed? Not yet. Joel picked up his phone again. Are we remote? Possibly for a short period. How short? I'll know more Monday. Marcus leaned against a folding table. When did you know this wasn't permanent? Nolan's gaze moved briefly toward me. After the retirement party. And we're hearing now? Yes. The word hung there without decoration. Marcus nodded once. His face did not show anger, which I suspected was worse for Nolan. Celeste asked practical questions about equipment, client files, and who would transport the printer. Nolan answered what he could. When he couldn't, he said so. It was the least confident I had ever heard him sound in front of other people, and probably the most honest. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. Afterward, everyone opened the pastry box as if eating were a group obligation. Celeste chose a plain croissant. Denise took half of something with red icing and left the other half untouched. Marcus went outside to make a call. I returned to the kitchen. Lena followed. Did you need to stand there? Yes. Did you enjoy it? No. She watched me. Not the way you mean, I said. What way do I mean? I was glad he had to say it. I wasn't glad they heard it. That may be the same thing from where he was standing. He chose where he was standing. I know. She poured the rest of her tea into the sink. The morning had already warmed it past what she liked. I'm not defending him, she said. You've said that a lot lately. Because you hear anything short of agreement as defense. I agreed to 2 weeks, and now you want credit for mercy. I want him out of my garage. Our garage! I looked at her. She lifted one shoulder. It works both ways. Nolan found me in the driveway an hour later. I was sweeping crumbs of asphalt away from the drain because there was always something to do if a man chose a small enough field of responsibility. You undermine me, he said. You managed that before breakfast. I'm serious. So am I. Marcus is calling the company that offered him a job. I stopped sweeping? Did he tell you that? No, but I know what that call was. Then talk to him. What am I supposed to say? Sorry, I don't have a plan, but trust me, that would be new. He stared at me. I regretted it as soon as I said it, which did not make it less true or more useful. Nolan, no. Go ahead. His voice stayed quiet. You've been saving these up, right? All the ways I've disappointed you? That's not what this is. Then what is it? You made promises with our house. You used our retirement as part of your business plan. Now you're angry because I won't help you pretend it's still working. I'm angry because you could have given me a day. You had a week. I needed 1 day after I found out you talked to Celeste. You found out this morning because I told you. He looked toward the garage. Through the open side door, we could see his people working without the usual conversation. I was trying to protect them, he said. From what? From this. From wondering whether the company is falling apart because I had to make a decision before I had all the answers. Is it falling apart? No? Then tell them that. That isn't how leadership works. I led people a long time. You fixed buses, I fixed buses. I also looked men and women in the face when parts were late, budgets were cut, and a bay had to close. I didn't tell them we had a building because I liked the way it sounded. His jaw worked. You never had to build something from nothing, he said. I looked at our house behind him, at the patch in the driveway I had poured by hand, at the gutter I had cleaned the week before, telling Lena maybe we needed less house. No, I said, I suppose not. He heard what I meant. His face changed, but neither of us reached for the softer sentence. He went back to work. The office stayed unnaturally quiet for the rest of Friday. At 5, everybody left on time. Marcus thanked me, but he did not stop to discuss outlets or shoes. Celeste shut down the printer at 4:45 and covered it with a plastic sheet. When the side gate latched behind Nolan, the house seemed to expand. Lena and I ate Brooke's soup at the dining room table. Nothing sat on it except 2 bowls, bread, and her grandmother's blue glass bowl. The simplicity felt staged. What would you want? I asked. She tore a piece of bread. Tonight, with the house. Her hands stopped. I'm asking. I can hear that. Is there a wrong time? Only every previous year. I let that pass because it had earned the right. She looked around the dining room. I don't know if I want to move. All right, I don't know if I want to stay. All right. You're saying that, like a man being held at customs. I'm trying not to finish the answer for you. That explains the pain in your face. I smiled. So did she. Then she said, I want less work. That's not the same as wanting less life. Every time I mention the yard, you tell me which tool will solve it. Every time I mention the stairs, you say they're good exercise. You hear a complaint and look for a repair. What should I hear? That I'm tired. The house made a small settling sound above us. She traced one finger along the edge of the blue bowl. I'd like a room where I can leave my sewing machine out. I'd like to play music without moving stacks of mail first. I'd like to go somewhere for 3 weeks and not spend the trip wondering if a branch came through the roof. Where would you go? I don't know. Somewhere that doesn't need weather stripping. The garage had gone silent, but I could still feel the shape of the office inside it. Why didn't you tell me about the room? I asked. I did. You said the back bedroom had too much stuff. I thought you meant we needed shelves. That's what I mean. A finch landed on Brooke's feeder outside the kitchen window. It tilted its head, selected one seed, and flew away before I could point it out. The office returned Monday with better manners. Nolan brought a mobile internet unit, rubber covers for the cords, and a printed schedule for transporting equipment after Friday. He had found a shared workspace for part of the team, though it would not hold the printer or sample cabinets. The rest would work remotely until he secured something larger. No one asked me to fix anything. By 10, I had walked through the garage twice pretending to look for a screwdriver. The second time, Celeste handed it to me from the corner of the bench without looking up. At lunch, Lena carried a plate of muffins into the garage. I thought we weren't feeding the occupation, I said when she returned. I made too many. You made 12. I frequently lose control of batter. She sat at the kitchen table. They're nice people. I know. That doesn't make Nolan right. I know. It also doesn't make us weak if we like them. I didn't say it did. You were about to. That afternoon, Nolan came into the kitchen and asked whether Denise could photograph fabric samples in the front room. He had chosen the only part of the day when direct light came through the tall windows. How long? Lena asked. 20 minutes. Will anything be moved? One chair, and she'll put it back. Lena looked at me. 2 to 2:30, I said. Thank you. At 2:29, Denise returned the chair to the exact marks it had left in the rug. She had also dusted beneath it. Nolan found me in the garage near the end of the day. He closed the sample cabinet before speaking. I found a place that would work, he said. Good. It's an old drafting studio on Hawthorne, enough room for everybody, street access, decent light. That sounds like what you need. It won't be available for 3 weeks. I waited. If we move everything out Friday and work remote, Andrea's team will see the disruption. We have revisions, material reviews, a full presentation coming. I'm asking for one more week here. Just the garage and back room, same rules. No. You didn't even think. I've been thinking since you opened the cardboard tube. Dad, I'm trying to do this correctly. I'm asking, and I'm answering. His face tightened. Then what exactly was the point of making me ask? To give me a choice. Nolan held my eyes for a moment, then gave a short laugh without humor. So, the asking is just ceremonial. No. The answer can be yes or no. That's what makes it asking. You let Denise use the front room. For 20 minutes, because she asked, because your mother and I agreed, and I'm asking for 5 working days, and we don't agree. He looked toward the kitchen door. Did you ask Mom? Not yet. Then you don't know. I know what I want. Right. Your house. The words landed exactly where he intended them to. I stepped closer. Don't use your mother to get around me. I'm not. You're the one speaking for her. He walked into the kitchen before I could answer. Lena was at the table sorting the retirement cards into 2 piles. People who needed thank you notes and people close enough to be thanked by phone. My city plaque and the folded rendering had been moved to the sideboard. The plaque remained on top. Nolan stopped across from her. The new space won't be ready for 3 weeks, he said. I asked Dad for 1 extra week here, and he said no. I'm asking you. Lena's eyes went to me, then back to him. Your father said no. Yes. Then the answer is no. His mouth opened. She held up one hand. Not because he owns the answer, because you came to me hoping I'd overrule him after you didn't get what you wanted. I'm trying to keep my company functioning. You're trying every door. Can we please stop turning everything I do into a character defect? I don't think needing space is a character defect. I think asking me to make your father the bad guy for you is something you've done since you could drive. Nolan looked down at the retirement cards. Lena added, if you had come to both of us first, we would have discussed it. Maybe the answer still would have been no. Maybe not. But you didn't. So I asked in the wrong order. You asked your father. He answered. Then you came to me to change the answer. That isn't order. That's shopping. I leaned against the doorway. I had no useful addition. Nolan nodded slowly. All right. He returned to the garage. Lena waited until the door shut behind him. You could have asked me before you said no. I knew you'd agree. To know? Yes, that isn't asking either. I was right. You're determined to learn this as slowly as possible. She went back to the cards. I pulled out the chair across from her. Would you have considered the extra week? She slid a card with a cartoon bus into the phone call pile for about 30 seconds. And then, no. Why? Because 2 weeks was the agreement. Because I want my back bedroom back. Because Priya is lovely, but she hums the same 6 notes for hours. Because I refuse to spend another Friday wondering what Monday will bring into my house. Our house. Don't be irritating on purpose. I'm trying to build the habit. She looked at me over the top of her glasses. Build it quietly. Nolan did not mention the extension again. He also stopped leaving coffee on my workbench. The next morning, I passed through the garage and found a handwritten schedule taped beside the side door. Equipment pickup, remote assignments, co-working reservations. Celeste had divided the printer's transport into 6 separate tasks, one of which was labeled, Find Human Beings Willing to Lift This. Marcus was at his desk wearing the gray sneakers. His white pair sat inside a box beneath his chair. You staying with him? I asked. The question surprised both of us. Marcus swiveled away from his monitor. That's direct. I'm working on it. He glanced toward the back bedroom. Nolan was on a call with the door mostly shut. I called the other company, Marcus said. They already filled the role. I'm sorry. I'm not sure I am. He leaned back. I like the work here. I don't like surprises. That makes 2 of us. Nolan thinks if he admits he's worried, everybody else will become more worried. He's not entirely wrong. No, that's the annoying part. I picked up a loose cable tie from the floor. Marcus nodded toward the workbench. He talks about that bench. What about it? Says it's where he built his first model. He cut his first model on the dining room table and left glue on the finish. I made him use the garage after that. Marcus smiled. That sounds more believable. He remembers the version that helps. Most people do. His phone rang. I left him to answer it. Without small disasters to manage, retirement began showing its actual shape. The hours were not empty exactly. They were wide. I could stand in the hardware aisle comparing 2 boxes of screws without anyone calling to ask why Bay 3 had lost air pressure. I could drink coffee after it cooled. I could also spend 40 minutes moving a wrench from one drawer to another and call it organization. Calvin phoned Wednesday morning. "Big emergency," he said. My body straightened before my mind caught up. "What happened?" "Murphy brought donuts and accidentally included one with coconut. We need your institutional knowledge." "You called me about a donut?" "I called to see if you're alive. The donut gives us structure. How's the garage? City garage or the one my son occupied? Whichever is less dysfunctional." I looked through the kitchen window. Nolan's employees were visible through the open side door, moving around my garage in headsets. Too close to call. Calvin invited me to lunch the following week. I almost told him I was busy, though my calendar held nothing except Nolan's departure deadline written in Lena's square handwriting. Instead, I said yes. After I hung up, I called Brooke. She answered on the 4th ring. "Is Mom okay? Your mother is fine. Are you okay? Apparently I need a medical event to call my daughter. It has historically improved the odds." I sat at the kitchen table. "Can I buy you lunch?" There was a pause. "Today? If you're free, I can move something. Don't move anything important." "Dad, it's lunch, not a kidney donation. Meet me at Russo's at 1. Russo's had served the same 5 sandwiches since before Nolan started his company. Brooke was already in a booth when I arrived, reading something on her phone. She put it face down when I sat. "You're wearing the retirement watch," she said. I looked at my wrist. I wanted to know what time it was. "So far, retirement is transforming you." The watch felt too heavy and too bright. "Your brother's leaving Friday. That was always the agreement. He asked for another week. And?" I said no. She picked up her water. "Congratulations?" That sounded like a question. "I don't know what you want from me." "I don't either." The waitress came. We ordered. Brooke chose the turkey club, then removed the tomato, which was what she had done since she was old enough to order for herself. When the waitress left, I folded my hands on the table. "You said I always catch Nolan," I began. "I said you rescue him. That too." Brooke's face went careful. "Are you trying to explain why?" "No, I'm asking what I missed." She sat back. I waited. "You really want the list?" "I want what matters." "That's convenient." "Probably." She turned her water glass by the rim. "When I moved out of the house with Eric, I called you." Her former husband's name still made me picture a man leaning against my refrigerator, borrowing confidence from the appliances. "I remember. You said you'd come after you helped Nolan hang drywall at his first office. The crew didn't show." "I know. You explained. I came the next morning. You came after everything was in the truck." I remembered boxes in Brooke's new living room, a mattress against the wall, her standing in a doorway holding a roll of paper towels. I had brought a toolbox and spent the afternoon fixing a cabinet hinge that had not mattered. "You told me I was strong," she said. "I meant it. I know." That was how you made leaving me alone sound like a compliment. The waitress set down our drinks. Neither of us spoke until she walked away. "I'm sorry," I said. Brooke looked at me, waiting. I let the sentence stay by itself. Her shoulders eased slightly. "That was almost good." "Almost?" "You still look like you want to fix something." "I do." "You can't." "I know. That's better." Our sandwiches arrived. She removed the tomato and set it on the edge of her plate. I did not point out that she could have ordered it without tomato. Friday filled the garage with boxes. The employees worked until noon, then shut down one station at a time. Monitors vanished into padded cases. Sample books were sorted by weight. The enormous printer required 4 people, 2 furniture dollies, and language. Lena pretended not to hear through the kitchen window. One wheel caught in the seam of the driveway. The printer tilted toward Marcus. I grabbed the side before it could go. Nolan caught the opposite corner. "We have it. I can see that." "You don't need to help. I know." Together, we guided it down the drive. No one thanked me, which was a relief. At 4:40, the garage held only the metal sample cabinets, my workbench, and pale rectangles on the floor where the folding tables had blocked the dust. Celeste swept. Denise took down the handwritten schedule. Marcus changed into his white sneakers for the last time. At 4:58, Nolan carried a final box to his car. He came back and stood in the center of the garage. "That's everything," he said. I looked at the sample cabinets. "Those were here before," he said. "They're part of your business. You let me store them. 8 years ago. I don't have anywhere secure to put the materials." I opened one cabinet. Tile samples, fabric books, metal finishes, and pieces of stone filled every shelf. "How long?" I asked. His expression changed. "Until the Hawthorne space opens." 3 weeks. Yes. Lena stood in the doorway behind me. She did not answer for either of us. I looked at Nolan. "The cabinets stay locked," I said. "You call before you come. 3 weeks." He nodded. "Thank you." At 5, he pulled the side door shut and left. The house was ours again, but it did not feel like a victory. It felt like the moment after machinery stopped, when your ears continued supplying the noise. Lena stepped into the garage and looked at the empty floor. "You gave him the cabinets," she said. "I asked myself what you'd want. And I thought you'd say yes." She nodded. "I would have. That's good? You still didn't ask?" She walked back into the house. I remained beside the cabinets, surrounded by all the space I had defended, and understood that getting people out was going to be easier than learning how to let anyone in. I swept the pale rectangles twice before admitting the dust was not moving because it had mixed with spilled coffee and become a building material. Lena came into the garage carrying a bucket. "Did you ask the floor what it wants?" she said. "I was waiting for you." Progress. She poured warm water into the bucket and added cleaner. Together, we scrubbed where the office had been. The garage smelled like lemon for the first time in its history. My workbench returned to its old position beneath the window, though the wood showed fresh scratches from monitor stands. The coat hook remained on the wall. "You want that down?" I asked. Lena considered it. "It's useful." I left it. In the back bedroom, outlines from the folding tables pressed into the carpet. Nolan's old soccer trophy sat on the high shelf beside 2 lamps and a box of photographs. I took it down and wiped dust from the gold plastic man. "You saved that?" Lena asked. "You saved it. I was waiting for you to throw it out. I was waiting for you. We've built a marriage on patience." I set the trophy on the dresser. "What do you want to do with this room?" "Today?" "In general." She sat on the edge of the bed. The room had been painted a pale green 15 years earlier, when Brooke briefly considered moving home after her divorce, and then decided she preferred paying rent to hearing us say she could stay as long as she needed. Since then, the bed had held more folded laundry than people. "I'd take the bed out," Lena said. "Where would it go?" "I don't know. That's why I haven't done it. We could donate it. We could." I waited. She looked up at me. "You're doing very well." "This is exhausting." She smiled. "I'd put the sewing table by the window, shelves on that wall." "Not too many." "How many is not too many?" "Ray." "I'm gathering information." 2. I looked at the wall. Floating or bracketed. Conversation over. She stood and walked out, still smiling. We spent Saturday putting the house back into its own rhythm. Lena carried the lamps upstairs to the attic. I removed strips of black tape from the dining room floor. One had been placed over the old glue mark Nolan made while building his first model at the table. The mark was no larger than a dime, cloudy against the oak. I rubbed it with my thumb. Lena came in with a stack of clean towels. "You tried to sand that out. I made it worse. You made it flatter. That's practically better." She set the towels on a chair. "He cried when you made him move to the garage." He was 28. He still cried. He had glue in his eye. He was also upset. I remembered Nolan sitting on a 5-gallon bucket, blinking tears while I read the warning label on the adhesive. He had been 2 months into the company, living on coffee and certainty. His first client had wanted a model by morning. I stayed in the garage until 2, cutting clean replacements for the pieces he ruined. Neither of us had ever mentioned that night when he told the story of starting with nothing. "Do you think we made him like this?" I asked. Lena leaned against the table. "Like what?" "Certain everything here is available. We made the house available. That isn't what I asked." "No. We didn't make him announce it at your party, but you gave him anything that solved the immediate problem, and I kept smoothing things over after. He learned the next problem would be handled too. And Brooke learned not to bring us one. She brought them. We told her she was strong. The words sounded different after lunch at Russo's. I looked at the glue mark. I apologized to her. For what? The day she moved out from Eric. Lena was quiet. "You remember?" I said. "I remember helping her pack the kitchen. I came the next morning. You fixed a hinge. I remember that now too." She picked up the towels. "Did she accept your apology?" She said it was almost good. That's high praise from Brooke. I returned her soup containers Sunday afternoon. Brooke lived in a narrow brick townhouse with a blue front door and a porch barely large enough for one chair. When she opened the door, a cabinet hinge was in her hand. "You sensed it," she said. "Sensed what?" "A loose hinge from 6 miles away. I came to return plastic containers." She stepped aside. "Sure." In the kitchen, one cabinet door leaned against the wall. Brooke set the hinge on the counter. "Do you want me to fix that?" I asked. Her face went suspicious. "Are you feeling all right?" I'm practicing questions. "Yes, I want you to fix it." "Good." "But I also made coffee." I looked at her. "That means I want you to stay after." I know what coffee means. Historically, coffee means you drink it while working. I fixed the hinge in 8 minutes and sat at her table for 40. Brooke told me about a reorganization at work, a manager who used the phrase shared sacrifice before assigning the sacrifice to everyone else, and a neighbor who kept leaving anonymous notes about her recycling bin. I did not tell her how to handle any of it. When she finished, I asked, "Do you want an opinion? On which part?" "The recycling bin." "No?" "Good, because I had nothing." She laughed. As I was leaving, she said, "Nolan hasn't called me. I didn't ask." "You were going to?" I was curious. Curiosity in this family usually gets hired as a messenger. "I'm not asking you to call him." She studied me, then nodded. "Almost good again. Calvin met me for lunch on Monday wearing his transit uniform, which was unfair. The navy shirt made me feel like I had arrived without pants. "You look rested," he said. "You look employed. Rub it in." We took a booth near the window. Calvin spent 20 minutes telling me about a bus with a door sensor that failed only when a particular mechanic watched it. I asked enough questions that he finally stopped. "You miss it?" he said. "I miss competent people describing incompetent machinery." "You miss people asking what to do." "I had 8 people asking what to do last week." "No, you had your son ignoring what you told him to do." "Different management structure." I stirred my iced tea. "The house is quiet. That was the goal, wasn't it?" "I thought so." Calvin tore open a packet of sweetener. "When I retire, I'm going to sleep until I become a medical concern." "Rhodes, you fall asleep during inventory meetings. That's training." He poured the sweetener into coffee already pale with cream. "What were you going to do?" he asked. "When?" "Retired. Before your boy tried to turn your dining room into downtown. I had answers I used to give. Restore furniture. Take a trip. Organize the garage." They sounded like labels on boxes nobody had opened. "I don't know," I said. Calvin nodded as if I had finally identified the correct malfunction. Nolan called Tuesday afternoon before coming for samples. It was the first time he followed the rule without being reminded. "I need the Hartwell fabric books and the brass finish set," he said. "When?" 4:30, if that works. I'll be here. You're always there." The words slipped out in the same careless way as your retired had. This time, he caught them. "Sorry," he said. 4:30 is fine." He arrived at 4:28 and waited in the driveway until I opened the side door. His shirt was rumpled, and there were gray shadows beneath his eyes. He carried 2 empty canvas bags. "The shared place isn't going well?" I asked. "It's going." That wasn't the question. He unlocked the first cabinet. "Denise is working in a conference room. She has to surrender every 90 minutes. Joel took a call in a stairwell this morning. The printer's in a storage unit because the co-working manager heard it turn on and said it violated the noise policy. He's observant. Celeste is calling it our industrial period. I helped him find the fabric books. He knew the cabinets well, but stress had made him search past things twice. "How's Marcus?" I asked. "Still there." "Good. Did he tell you he called another company?" "Yes." Nolan stopped. "What else does my staff tell you?" He answered a question. "You two become friends while he was in my office?" "My garage." "Right. He pushed the brass finish samples into one bag. The metal pieces knocked together like heavy coins. Andrea wants a full materials presentation next Thursday," he said. She liked the revisions. "That's good. She wants her partners there." "That sounds good too." "The Ashford Lounge won't work for 6 people and full boards." I looked at him. "I'm asking," he said. "1 meeting, dining room, 2 hours. No sign, no staff, except Celeste and Denise. We bring everything in and take everything out the same day." "Did you already schedule it here?" "No. Did you imply it?" "No." "Do your brochures still have our address?" The corrected batch went out Friday. That was an answer to a nearby question. "What time?" I asked. 6 to 8. "Your mother and I will discuss it." He nodded. I did not tell him yes. I also did not tell him no. When Lena came home, she found Nolan standing in the doorway of the back bedroom. We had moved the boxes of photographs into the hall and shifted the ironing board to the closet. Her sewing machine sat beneath the window, still covered. "What's happening here?" Nolan asked. "I'm reclaiming the room," she said. "For what?" "For me." He looked around. "You're turning it into a sewing room and music." "Since when?" "Since before you needed an office. I didn't know you wanted that. You didn't ask." He took that without arguing. Over dinner, Lena and I discussed the presentation. She listened to the request, then asked whether I wanted to say no, because the meeting was dangerous or because yes would feel like losing. "I don't trust him to keep it to 2 hours," I said. "Neither do I. He used the address after agreeing not to." "I remember. He told his staff we were moving. I was present for that too. You sound like you want to allow it. I want to know why you don't, because every exception becomes evidence that the boundary was unreasonable." She considered that. "And because it's our dining room," I added. "That answer I understand." We called Nolan together. I put the phone on speaker. "The answer is no," Lena said. "We know you asked properly. We discussed it properly. It's still no." There was a pause. "All right," he said. No argument, no appeal. The quick acceptance unsettled me, more than resistance would have. "I'll find somewhere," he added. After the call, Lena covered her sewing machine again. Nolan returned to the garage for the second bag. Before leaving, he noticed a small model wedged behind the sample cabinet. The cardboard walls were warped, and dried adhesive shone at the corners. His first project. He pulled it out, looked at it, and handed it to me. "Throw that away. You kept it 8 years. I forgot it existed." He lifted both bags. At the side door, he stopped. "You know why Andrea liked this house?" he asked. "It feels established. Everything I have right now looks temporary. Then show her the work." He gave me a tired smile. "You always think the work speaks for itself. If it's good enough. People have to be looking." He walked to his car, leaving the old model in my hands. One wall sagged where he had glued it twice. I could see my own pencil line beneath his cut, showing him where the edge should have been. I set it on the workbench instead of throwing it away. I left the crooked wall crooked. That required more discipline than it should have. The cardboard had separated at one corner, and a small amount of wood glue would have held it. I had glue 6 feet away. I had clamps, tape, a square, 3 kinds of blade, and nowhere I needed to be. Instead, I carried the model into the back bedroom and set it on the dresser beside Nolan's soccer trophy. Lena was measuring the wall for shelves. "You know the number?" I asked. "I do." "You don't want me to check? I want you to hold the other end of the tape." I did. She marked the wall at 48 inches, then handed me the pencil. 2 shelves, I said. 2 shelves. "Floating?" "Bracketed. I don't trust floating shelves." I knew there was a reason we lasted. We removed the bed that afternoon. A donation center agreed to collect it, which meant I had no excuse to dismantle it, rebuild the frame, or spend 6 hours solving transportation with ropes and an old blanket. Once it was gone, the room looked larger and slightly shocked. Lena rolled her sewing table in from the hall. It had belonged to her mother and was built with 6 narrow drawers that stuck in damp weather. I reached for the top one. "Don't," she said. "I was going to see if it still sticks. It does. I can fix that, I know. Not today." She positioned the table beneath the window. I stood nearby with my hands empty, discovering that restraint had a physical sensation. It felt like an itch between my shoulder blades. "You can move the lamp," she said. Thank God. Her phone rang before I finished. She answered, listened, and then looked at me. "Yes, Wednesday afternoon is fine," she said. "We'll meet you there." When she hung up, I waited. "That was a real estate agent," she said. "All right, there's a condo near the river I wanted to see." "All right, you're allowed additional words. Did you make the appointment for both of us?" "I did." "Then I'll go." She watched my face. "You don't have to sound like you're reporting for a colonoscopy. I've never seen a condo voluntarily. You've repaired 3. Exactly." The building near the river had a stone lobby, quiet elevators, and a potted tree so glossy I touched a leaf to confirm it was real. The agent, a woman named Marcy, wore soft-soled shoes and spoke in the calm voice of someone guiding nervous animals through a narrow gate. The unit was on the 4th floor. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen island wider than our dining room table, and no garage. "Where do people put things?" I asked. Marcy opened a coat closet. I meant actual things. Lena looked at me. He has tools. There are storage lockers downstairs, Marcy said. How large? 4 by 6. That's where people put a snow shovel. There's underground parking. Can I do work there? What kind of work? The kind that makes noise. Marcy's smile remained professional. There are community guidelines. That means no. It means there are community guidelines. Lena walked to the balcony before I could interview Marcy about voltage. The river appeared between 2 office buildings, a strip of moving silver. Traffic murmured below. No gutters, no lawn, no maple tree lifting the back walk with its roots. I joined her. What do you think? She asked. I think the kitchen is trying too hard. About the rest. I'd have to get rid of most of the garage. We would. There's nowhere for a workbench. No. The second bedroom could hold your sewing table. Yes. She rested both hands on the balcony railing. You hate it. I don't hate it. You asked where people put actual things. That was a fair question. I don't love it either. I turned to her. The light is good, she said. The elevator is good. I like the balcony. The hall smells like somebody boiled broccoli in 1997 and never opened a window, I noticed. And the kitchen is trying too hard. It wants to be photographed. She laughed. Inside, Marcy pretended to study the appliances. We thanked her and left without taking an application. On the way home, Lena asked me to stop at a bakery. We sat at a small metal table with coffee and 1 piece of lemon cake between us. I'm glad we looked, she said. So am I. You don't have to say that. I'm trying to understand what leaving would feel like before I decide it's impossible. She scraped frosting from her fork. And, smaller, brilliant. Some of it felt easier. She nodded. I still don't want to give Nolan the house, I added. This was never about giving him the house. I know, that sentence would mean more if you stopped bringing him into every conversation about us. I took a drink of coffee. What if we stayed another year? What happens in the year? We make the back room yours. I sort the garage instead of defending every bent nail as heritage. We travel somewhere for longer than a weekend. Then we decide. Together? I was hoping so. She looked at me for a long moment. That sounds like a plan. It was the first plan I had made since retirement that did not begin with somebody else's emergency. Nolan called before we reached home. I'm at Hawthorne, he said. Can you look at something? What? The electrical panel. Is it on fire? No. Then you need an electrician. I have one coming Friday. I want to know whether I'm about to spend money bringing in equipment that can't run here. Do you want my opinion, or do you want me to fix it? There was a pause. Your opinion. I looked at Lena. She heard enough to understand. Go, she said. I want to arrange the sewing room without commentary. The Hawthorne space occupied the ground floor of an old drafting building between a plumbing supplier and a shop that repaired musical instruments. Nolan met me at a glass door, with strips of old lettering still visible beneath the new paint. Inside, the room was long and high-ceilinged, with exposed brick and north-facing windows. Dust covered the concrete floor. A row of scarred drafting tables had been pushed against one wall. It was not polished. It was also the first office of his that felt like a place where work might happen, instead of a photograph of a place where work had happened. The panel's back here, he said. The wiring was old, but not disastrous. The main service would support normal office use, though the printer needed a dedicated line, and the lighting circuits had been arranged by someone who believed electricity benefited from mystery. You'll need the electrician, I said. I know. Have him test every outlet. That one by the windows has scorch marks. I saw. The printer needs its own circuit. I told Celeste she may have to choose between printing and heat. What did she choose? She asked whether I was willing to put it in writing. I smiled. Nolan leaned against the wall beside the panel. What do you think of the place? Do you want my opinion? I just drove you over here for it. It needs work. His mouth tightened. But it's good space, I added. Better than the last office. You hated the last office. I hated the chairs. They won an award. Chairs don't know they're chairs anymore. He looked into the main room. Sunset had begun warming the brick. I wanted something finished, he said. Something that looked like we'd been here 10 years. You haven't been here 10 years. The company's almost 9. Then it looks exactly right. That isn't how clients think. Maybe not. He ran his hand over the edge of a drafting table. Andrea's partners are old school. They want stability. craft, continuity. Her word was roots. Roots are expensive if they lift the back walk. He didn't smile. I looked at him. You'll show them the work. At a rented conference room with beige walls and a coffee machine beside the fire exit. If they're buying walls, you're in the wrong business. You say things like that because you never had to sell yourself. I interviewed for supervisor, once, 26 years ago. I wore a tie. I'm sure that overwhelmed them. He walked toward the windows. I wanted the presentation at the house because the house makes the story make sense, he said. The table where I did the first model, the garage where you helped me rebuild it, Mom answering calls. The firm came from somewhere. You told everybody you came from nothing. That's what people say. It wasn't true. I know. His answer was quiet enough to remove the argument from my mouth. He added, You never acted like the company was real until something broke. I helped you. You fixed things. That's not the same as saying you believed in me. There were moments in a garage when an engine made a new sound and everybody nearby understood something serious had changed. You did not reach for a wrench until you knew where it came from. I did believe in you, I said. Nolan looked at me. You should have mentioned it. He turned away before I could answer. I left Hawthorne with the dust of his unfinished office on my shoes. At home, Lena had moved the sewing table 3 inches to the left and placed the old model on one of the new shelves, crooked wall facing the room. It belongs there for now, she said. The next day passed without Nolan calling. On Thursday, I hung the second shelf while Lena stood behind me and confirmed the height. By 4, her fabric was arranged in the drawers and an old radio sat on the dresser beside the soccer trophy. At 4:15, Nolan's car pulled into the driveway. A rented van stopped behind him. I met him in the garage. He unlocked the sample cabinets while 2 delivery men rolled folding display panels down a ramp. What are those? I asked. Presentation boards. For where? He did not answer quickly enough. Nolan? The conference room fell through. Then find another. Andrea and her partners are arriving at 6. My stomach went cold. You told them to come here after we said no. I told them this afternoon. You had no right. I know. No, you don't. He opened the second cabinet and began pulling out fabric books. It's 2 hours, he said. You and Mom don't have to do anything. I'll set up, make the presentation, and clear everything tonight. You're not setting up. They're already coming. That doesn't change the answer. He turned toward me, a brass sample clutched in one hand. I can't move them again. Not after the Ashford, not after the address confusion. If I call now, I lose the presentation. Then you should have thought of that before you gave them our address. I did think. I thought you'd understand once it was real. That was your retirement party plan too. Lena appeared in the doorway behind me. She took in the van, the display panels, and the open cabinets. Nolan's face shifted. Mom, I'm sorry. The meeting space canceled, and this is the only place that works. Andrea will be here at 6. I need the dining room for 2 hours. Lena stood very still. You already invited her? She asked. Yes. After we told you no? Yes. One of the delivery men waited beside the van, pretending to examine a wheel. Lena looked at me. For the first time, Nolan did not fill the silence. He seemed to understand there was no sentence left that could make what he had done smaller. A car slowed in front of the house, then continued down the street. Call her, I said. Nolan shook his head. I can't. Call her and move the meeting. I can't. Then I will tell her at the door that the dining room isn't available. You wouldn't do that. The certainty in his voice was soft, almost pleading. It was the same certainty that had placed a steel sign in Lena's peonies and made 50 people applaud. I stepped past him and closed the sample cabinet. Watch me. Nolan's hand remained on the cabinet handle. The delivery men looked at each other. One of them cleared his throat. Sir, he said to Nolan, we need a room location before we unload the rest. Nolan did not take his eyes off me. Give me a minute. Our window ends at 5, then give me 30 seconds. The man stepped back toward the van. Nolan lowered his voice. If you turn them away at the door, you're not setting a boundary. You're humiliating me. I'm giving you time to prevent that. I don't have another room. You have Hawthorne. It isn't ready. It's yours. It's covered in dust. Then show them the dust. This isn't a game, Dad. I know. He looked at Lena. Do you? She flinched as if he had thrown something small but sharp. Yes, she said. I understand exactly what this could cost you. Then let me use the room. No? Nolan looked between us. Lena stepped into the garage. You asked, we discussed it. We told you no. You waited, made the promise anyway, and came back hoping the deadline would make your decision ours. It's 2 hours. It has never been about 2 hours. I can't keep apologizing for the party every time I need something. Then stop repeating the party. The second delivery man came down the van ramp with another panel. The first waved him back. Nolan took out his phone. He walked to the far end of the driveway and stood with his back to us. For several seconds he stared at the screen. Then he called, Andrea, hi. There's been a change in venue. He listened. No, not the Ashford. My new studio on Hawthorne. Another pause. It's not fully finished, but the boards are ready and we can set everything up there. His shoulders tightened. I understand. He looked toward the house. I could not hear Andrea, but I could see each word arrive. No, this is my mistake. I confirmed a space I didn't have. Lena exhaled beside me. Nolan listened again. 6:30 will work. I'll send the address now. Thank you. He ended the call. The delivery man approached cautiously. Where are we headed? Nolan gave him the Hawthorne address. That's across town. I know. We'll have to charge the second stop. I know. And wait time. I know. The man nodded. All right. Celeste's car pulled into the driveway as the first display panel rolled back up the van ramp. Denise was with her. Both women got out carrying presentation cases. Celeste took in the scene. Her eyes moved from the panels to Nolan, then to me. Venue change, Nolan said. We're going to Hawthorne. Denise looked toward the house. I thought, Hawthorne? Celeste repeated. What needs to go? Everything. She put down her case and started helping the delivery men secure the panels. Denise opened the back of Nolan's car and rearranged boxes. Neither asked why. I stood beside the sample cabinets. Every part of me knew how to make the next hour easier. I could have loaded the brass samples in my truck, brought moving blankets, found the fastest route across town, and made sure the boards arrived in the order Nolan needed them. I could see the sequence as clearly as a repair checklist. I did none of it. Nolan carried 2 boxes at once. One began sliding. Celeste caught it against her hip before it fell. Take one, she said. We're late. We'll be later if the marble samples break your foot. He let her remove the top box. Lena touched my arm. Come inside. I stayed until the van doors closed. Nolan did not look at us when he drove away. In the kitchen, Lena poured herself water and drank half the glass without sitting down. I walked to the dining room. The table was exactly as we had left it. Her grandmother's blue bowl stood in the center. Sunlight lay across the oak in long bars. No display panels, no fabric books, no strangers waiting to be convinced that Nolan's company had roots. I put both hands on the back of a chair. I almost helped him, I said. I know. I knew exactly what needed doing. I know that too. He may lose the contract. Yes. The plainness of her answer made me turn. You think I should have let him use the room? No. But? There's no but. You sound like there is. I'm sad, Ray. A right decision can still make me sad. I pulled out the chair and sat. He thinks I wanted to humiliate him. Did you? No. Did any part of you want him to feel what he'd done? I looked at the table. Yes. She nodded. That isn't the same thing, I said. No, but it's nearby. We ate dinner at 6. Neither of us had much appetite, so the meal consisted of scrambled eggs, toast, and the last 2 muffins from the batch Lena had supposedly lost control of. At 6:30, I looked at the clock and pictured Nolan standing in the unfinished Hawthorne studio beneath bad lighting, trying to convince 3 hotel owners that exposed wires were intentional. At 7:15, I turned on the radio in Lena's new room. A jazz station came through with static. I adjusted the antenna until a saxophone emerged. You can replace that radio, I said. I like this one. It barely works. So do we. She sat at the sewing table and opened one of the drawers. It stuck halfway. She pulled harder until it released with a wooden squeal. May I fix that tomorrow? I asked. She considered. Yes. At 9:40, a car door closed outside. Nolan let himself into the garage with his old side door key. I was at the workbench, sanding the edge of a shelf bracket Lena had rejected because it was too decorative. He came in carrying both canvas bags of samples. His jacket was over one arm. His shirt had darkened beneath the collar, and there was a streak of dust down one sleeve. I shut off the sander. How did it go? It happened. That wasn't the question. No, it wasn't. He put the bags on the floor. Brass pieces knocked together inside one. Did they like the work? They liked the concept. Andrea? She said the revisions were strong. That sounds good. She also said they need a firm with the capacity to handle 3 properties without disruption. I waited. They're delaying the decision, he said. She wants to see Hawthorne when it's operational. That gives you time. It gives her time to interview someone else. He unlocked the sample cabinet and began putting the books back. You could leave that for tomorrow, I said. I'm here now. You're tired. I thought my time was valuable. I let that pass. He slid 3 fabric books onto a shelf, pulled them out, and rearranged them by height. He was angry enough to organize. After a minute, I said, "You told her the truth. What choice did I have? You could have called it a room conflict. I tried that once." The cabinet door rattled when he shut it. "I'm not sorry I stopped the meeting," I said. "I know. I am sorry about the position you're in." "You mean the position I put myself in?" "Yes." He laughed once. "Thank you for the clarification." "Nolan?" "What? Do you want me to lie now?" "No. I wanted you to say yes at 4:15. I couldn't." "You could. You chose not to." "That's right." He leaned against the cabinet. "Do you know what I kept thinking while we set up? I kept thinking you were going to walk in. You'd see the electrical mess, the boards leaning wrong, the lighting, all of it, and you'd just start fixing things." I thought about it. "But you stayed here." "Yes." He looked toward the house. "That was the lesson, right? Make me handle the consequences. I'm not teaching you a lesson." "Of course you are. That's what all of this has been. The handshake, the deadline, standing beside me while I told the staff, watching the van leave. You've turned my business into one long demonstration about respect. You used our home to demonstrate your success, because I wanted you to see it. I saw it. No. You saw problems. You brought me problems. That was the only time you looked." His voice rose on the last word, then dropped immediately. He glanced toward the kitchen door. "I've been doing this 9 years, he continued. You know how many presentations you came to?" "None." "How many offices you visited when nothing was broken?" "None." "How many times you said you were proud of me without following it with advice?" I tried to remember. Nolan nodded at my silence. "I hung drywall," I said. "I repaired your van. Your mother and I gave you the dining room when you had nowhere to work. You gave me labor and space. I'm grateful for that." "You don't act grateful." "Because gratitude in this family means pretending it was enough." Lena appeared in the doorway. She had heard at least part of it. Nolan straightened. "I'm putting the samples away." "You can talk without pretending you came for cabinets," she said. He looked at her, then at me. Lena stepped into the garage. "Your father should have told you he was proud." "Lena, he should have." Nolan's face tightened. She continued. "And I should have stopped volunteering myself every time your company needed a soft place to land. I like being useful. I liked that you called. Then I resented you for expecting the thing I kept offering. I didn't ask you to answer phones all those years ago. You didn't have to. That's the problem we all keep finding." Nolan looked at the concrete floor. "I set the shelf bracket on the bench. I was proud of you." He did not look up. "I am proud of you," I said. "I'm proud of what you built. I'm proud you stood in Hawthorne tonight and told Andrea the mistake was yours. That may have cost me the contract. It still mattered." He lifted his head. "And you're not proud of anything that happened before that?" "I didn't say that." "You waited until I failed in the correct way. That's not fair." "No," he said. "It probably isn't. We stood in the lemon-cleaned garage around cabinets full of things chosen to make other rooms beautiful. Finally, I said, I made it too easy for you to take from us and too hard for you to know what I felt. That's mine. But you still knew enough to ask." Nolan's eyes shone, though whether from anger or exhaustion I couldn't tell. "I thought, if the company came here," he said, "you'd have to be part of it. I don't want to be part of it that way. I know that now." He reached into his pocket and placed the side door key on the workbench. "You can keep the cabinets for 3 weeks," I said. "I'll move them Saturday. You don't have to. I don't want another thing from you that turns into evidence later." He picked up the canvas bags and walked toward the driveway. "Nolan," Lena said. He stopped but did not turn. "Call before you come Saturday," she told him. After a moment, he nodded. The side door closed behind him. His old key lay beside the unfinished model and the shelf bracket I had been trying to smooth. I picked it up, felt the familiar worn teeth against my palm, and understood that I had finally made my son carry his own problem. I had not expected the house to feel emptier because of it. I put the key in the kitchen junk drawer between a roll of tape and 3 batteries that might or might not have been dead. Lena watched me close the drawer. "That's where important things go to disappear," she said. "I know where it is." "That's what everyone says about the junk drawer." Nolan called at 8 Saturday morning. "I'll be there at 10 with a truck," he said. "Celeste and Marcus are helping." "All right, we'll be quick." "You don't have to be quick. I don't want to take up your day." I looked at the blank square on the calendar. 10 is fine, I said. He arrived at 9:57. The rented truck backed into the driveway with a grinding alarm that announced each foot of progress to the neighborhood. Celeste rode in the passenger seat. Marcus followed in his car. Nolan came to the side door and knocked. The key had been in the junk drawer less than 12 hours, but the knock changed the sound of the house. I opened the door. "We're here for the cabinets," he said. I assumed the truck wasn't for pastries. Celeste stepped around him carrying 2 empty storage bins. "No printer this time. I've developed a reflex when I see large office equipment." Marcus wore old black shoes with steel toes. "These can get dirty. I'm glad you found a pair." He smiled. Nolan did not. The cabinets were taller than they looked once we emptied them. Fabric books filled 12 bins. Stone and metal samples filled another 8, each heavy enough to make the plastic handles bow. Celeste labeled everything. Marcus wrapped the cabinets in moving blankets. I stayed near the workbench and handed over tools when asked. Nolan did not ask. He had removed his jacket and rolled his sleeves. The bruise-colored shadows beneath his eyes had deepened. When his phone rang, he checked the screen and silenced it. "How did Andrea decide?" I asked. He picked up another stack of sample cards. "She went with Bishop Cole." The name meant nothing to me, but the way Celeste stopped writing told me enough. "I'm sorry," I said. Nolan set the cards into a bin. "They have offices in 3 cities. She said they were a safer fit." Was Thursday the reason? It didn't help. Celeste put down her marker. "The work was better than Bishop's." "That isn't the only thing clients buy," Nolan said. He looked at me when he said it, but there was no accusation in his face. That made it worse. "Are you going to be all right?" I asked. "The company? You?" He pushed the stack flat. "I don't know yet." It was the first time I had heard him say that without immediately building a wall around it. Marcus lifted one end of the first cabinet onto a dolly. The bottom edge caught against a crack in the concrete and slipped sideways. Nolan reached for it. The cabinet tilted toward the workbench. My body moved before the family philosophy could hold a meeting. I caught the top corner. Marcus steadied the dolly. Nolan braced the side. For a second, the 3 of us held the weight. "Lower it," I said. We set it down. Nolan wiped his palm on his jeans. "We can handle it, I know." He looked at the cabinet, then at me. "Can you hold the top while we get it over the seam?" "Yes, no speech, no lesson." He asked, I answered, and the cabinet crossed the crack without becoming evidence for anything else. The first one went into the truck. The second fought us at the driveway because one wheel on the dolly had developed an opinion. Marcus kicked it straight. Celeste stood inside the truck directing placement with the authority of someone who had moved too many offices for a company that was 9 years old. By noon, only 6 bins remained. Brooke came through the back gate carrying a paper bag. She stopped beside the truck. "Did I miss the eviction?" Nolan stepped down from the ramp. "You're a week late. I brought sandwiches. For Mom and Dad, for whoever is here, I learn." Celeste took the bag from her. "You're my favorite Mercer. You haven't seen my recycling bin." Brooke handed out sandwiches on the patio. Nobody suggested eating at the dining room table. Nolan sat on the low stone wall beside the flower bed. The peonies had recovered from Thomas's shoes and the retirement party chairs. Marcus took a sandwich back to the truck. Celeste sat beneath the maple tree. Brooke lowered herself beside Nolan. "I heard about the presentation," she said. "From Mom?" "She said it was a bad night." Nolan looked toward the kitchen window. "That's a generous version. Did you lose the contract?" "Yes." "I'm sorry." He unwrapped his sandwich. "Are you?" Brooke's face changed. "What does that mean?" "It means you've spent 2 weeks waiting for me to hit the wall. I spent 2 weeks waiting for Dad to stop carrying you away from it. Same difference." "No, it isn't." Celeste stood. Marcus, I need you to explain something about the straps. Marcus looked at the fully secured load. Which straps? All of them. They walked toward the truck with their sandwiches. I started to get up. Lena put a hand on my knee. Sit. Brooke watched Nolan. You made Mom and Dad's retirement into your office announcement. You put employees in their house, then acted like every objection threatened 8 innocent people. You scheduled a client after they said no. Yes, part of me wanted you to finally hear no. There it is. That isn't the same as wanting your company to fail. You've never liked the company. I don't like what the company turns the rest of us into. What does that mean? It means every time you have a crisis, we get assigned roles. Mom comforts, Dad fixes. I'm supposed to be impressed and not make trouble. No one asked you to do anything. You announced it at a family party. It was Dad's retirement party. I was there, Nolan. He looked down at his sandwich. Brooke continued, quieter. You never ask how I'm doing unless you're about to explain how busy you are. That's not true. Name one thing happening at my job. His mouth opened, then closed. She nodded. Exactly. Nolan folded the sandwich wrapper into a smaller square. You think Mom and Dad only ignored your problems? He asked. They were proud of you all the time. They called me strong. That's pride. That's what Dad thought. I felt Lena's hand tighten on my knee. Nolan looked at me, then back at his sister. I'm sorry, he said. Brooke's expression did not soften immediately. For which part? For not knowing anything about your job, for making family emergencies and assuming everybody would show up. And I'm not apologizing for the company existing. I didn't ask you to. They sat beside each other in the sunlight, both holding sandwiches neither had eaten. Finally, Brooke asked, What are you doing at Hawthorne tomorrow? Painting. Do you have people? Celeste. Denise said she'd come. I can paint. Nolan glanced at her. You hate painting. I hate taping. There's a difference. You don't have to. I know. The sentence moved between them, familiar now. Nolan nodded. 10 o'clock, 11. Fine. They resumed eating. I looked at Lena. She raised one eyebrow, warning me not to touch what was repairing itself. After lunch, we loaded the final bins. Nolan took his old soccer trophy from the back bedroom, though Lena told him he could leave it. He stood beneath the new shelves and looked at the sewing table, the radio, and the fabric arranged by color. This looks good, he said. It isn't finished, Lena told him. Nothing is. He picked up the trophy, then noticed the cardboard model on the workbench in the garage. I thought I told you to throw that away. You did. Why didn't you? I didn't want to. He ran one finger along the sagging wall. You didn't fix it? No. That must have hurt. A little. He smiled. It disappeared quickly, but it was there. When the truck left, the garage was truly empty of Nolan's company for the first time in 8 years. Even the old sample cabinets were gone. Clean rectangles marked the wall behind them. I found 2 fabric cards and a brass disc on the floor and set them aside. Lena stood beside the workbench. Are you keeping this? She asked. The bench? It takes up half the window. I use it. For what? Things. Actual things? I looked at her. She smiled. We don't have to decide today. We put the leftover sandwiches in the refrigerator. I returned Nolan's key to the junk drawer, then moved it to the small ceramic dish beside the telephone. Important things disappeared in the drawer. I was trying to stop making people search for what I meant. The days that followed were quiet in a different way. Not the shocked silence after the office left, but the ordinary quiet of rooms being used by the people who lived in them. Lena played music while she sorted fabric. I repaired the sticky sewing table drawers because she asked. We chose shelf brackets together, and she rejected every decorative one until we found plain black steel. Calvin took me to the transit garage for lunch. I sat in the break room while people complained about scheduling and watched a new supervisor answer questions I used to answer. He was competent. That was both reassuring and mildly offensive. When someone asked what I was doing with retirement, I said, figuring it out. The answer no longer sounded like failure. I started restoring a walnut side table I had bought years earlier from an estate sale. One leg had been repaired badly with nails. I removed them, cleaned the split, and spent an afternoon fitting a proper brace. I worked slowly because no one needed the table by morning. Brooke called after painting at Hawthorne. I'm not giving you a report, she said. I didn't ask for one. I know. It's unsettling. How was the paint? Gray, of course. Nolan let Denise choose. It has a real name, but I refuse to learn it. Did you and your brother survive? We discussed my job. Good. You're fishing. I'm making conversation. Almost good. Nolan did not call. I knew Hawthorne's electrician had come because Lena heard it from Brooke, who mentioned it accidentally and then accused herself of becoming a courier. I knew the team was working remotely because Celeste mailed a thank you note addressed to both Lena and me. I knew nothing else. For the first time in years, I let not knowing remain Nolan's business. The 3-week storage period ended with no cabinets to remove and no reason for him to come back. Another week passed. Lena and I booked a train trip north for the fall, 12 days instead of 3 weeks because honesty had not made us reckless. We agreed to stay in the house for a year and then decide again. I kept expecting the phone to ring. It did not. On a Wednesday afternoon, I was sanding the walnut table when the front doorbell sounded. I wiped my hands and went inside. Nolan stood on the porch. No key, no cardboard tube. He wore work clothes dusted with sawdust, and there was a healing cut across one knuckle. Behind him, his car was empty. I opened the door wider. Is everything all right? Yes. He looked past me toward the garage, then back at my face. I need to ask you for something, he said. And if the answer is no, it's no. I'd like the workbench, he said. I glanced toward the garage. The whole thing? The top. You can keep the frame. For what? A conference table. I looked at him. Nolan put both hands into his jacket pockets. The drafting tables at Hawthorne are useful, but they're too narrow. We need one place where everybody can sit with full boards. You can buy a table, I know. So this is about money? No. What's it about? He looked past me again. That's where I made the first model after you threw me out of the dining room. I didn't throw you out. You glued the table. Mom said I cried. You had adhesive in your eye. That is the version I prefer. I stepped aside. Come in. He wiped his shoes without being told. We went through the kitchen, where Lena was pinning fabric at her sewing table with the radio playing low. She appeared in the doorway when she heard us. Nolan wants the workbench top, I said. He looked at me. I was going to ask her. Good? Lena leaned against the doorframe. Why do you want it? He gave her the same answer he had given me, without improving it for a second audience. That mattered. What would happen to Ray's bench? She asked. I'd replace the top. I can replace it, I said. Nolan kept his eyes on Lena. I can build a new one if he wants. He can answer. They both looked at me. I want to keep the frame, I said. I don't need you to replace the top. You need a top. I can make one. I know. The words sat there without becoming a contest. Lena asked, Do you want to give him the old one? I thought about the scratches from monitor stands, the faint burn where I had set down a hot metal bracket, and the cut marks left by projects I no longer remembered. I thought about Nolan at 28, sitting on a bucket with one eye watering while we rebuilt a model together. Yes, I said, I do. Nolan nodded once. Thank you. Coffee? Lena asked. He hesitated. If you have time. I'm retired too, apparently. People keep assuming I'm available. His face tightened. She smiled. That was a joke? Right. I'm still working on delivery. We sat at the dining room table. Nolan took the chair at the side instead of the head. The glue mark remained near his right hand, cloudy and flat from my failed repair. Lena poured coffee for him and me, then made tea for herself. Nobody mentioned that she remembered what he drank. For a while, we discussed the workbench. The top was solid maple, thick enough to survive being removed from the frame if we loosened the bolts from below. Nolan wanted to sand it lightly, seal it, and mount it on black steel legs. Don't sand out the pencil lines, I said. I won't. Or the glue, I know. You'll need support beneath the center. I designed a frame. Good. Lena stirred her tea. Ray. He showed me the design? No. I looked at Nolan. He took a folded sheet from his jacket and placed it on the table. Would you like to see it? Yes. The drawing showed the workbench top on a simple rectangular base, with the original vice marks left visible along one edge. Unlike the rendering of our house, this plan had no company logo, no tiny people, and no future assigned to anyone who had not agreed. It'll hold, I said. That's it? You asked for my opinion. I did. It will hold. He folded the sheet again, but more carefully than before. How's Hawthorne? Lena asked. Almost ready, the electrician finished. We're moving the printer Monday. Did he install the circuit your father recommended? Yes, then the Eastern power grid is safe. Nolan looked at me. Celeste told you about that? I have sources. He smiled faintly. What happened with the staff? I asked. They stayed. All of them. Yes. Marcus said he would give me 6 months, which sounded generous until he explained that he plans to spend them judging me. He'll be thorough. I told everybody the company can handle the lost contract, but we're postponing a new hire and cutting the launch campaign. I also told them I had overstated our plans for the house. How did that go? Denise asked whether she should destroy the original brochures or save one for the holiday party. Lena covered a laugh with her cup. Nolan rubbed his thumb across the glue mark. I thought losing Andrea would feel like the company was over, he said. It doesn't. It feels like losing Andrea. That sounds healthier, Lena said. It's less dramatic. Health usually is. He looked around the dining room. The blue bowl stood in the center. A basket of fabric scraps waited on a chair because Lena had not yet decided where they belonged. My retirement watch lay beside a stack of thank you cards I was still avoiding. I owe both of you an apology that isn't attached to a request, Nolan said. No one interrupted him. I used conversations you had about moving as permission. I told my staff a story because it made the company sound stable, and then I tried to make the story true after the fact. At the party, I knew announcing it in front of everybody would make it harder for you to refuse. His eyes met mine. I told myself that was because I wanted to surprise you. That wasn't all of it. No, I said. He looked at Lena. I took what you said about the garage and back room and turned it into the whole house. Then I used you against Dad when he said no. Yes, she said. I'm sorry. Thank you. She did not tell him it was all right. It wasn't. And Nolan seemed relieved not to be forced into accepting forgiveness she wasn't ready to offer in full. He turned back to me. I'm sorry I treated everything you gave me like proof you had to keep giving. And I'm sorry I made you defend your own house at your retirement party. Our house, I said. Lena looked at me. That correction was for me, I added. Nolan nodded. I ran a finger along the edge of the table. I'm sorry I made favors do the work of words, I said. I kept helping you, kept saying yes, and then acted like you should know where the invisible line was. I also kept a record in my head of everything I'd done. That wasn't generosity anymore. You did help me. I know, and I wanted to. Most of the time. Most? There was a winter I hated your van. It hated you too. The transmission was personal. His mouth moved into something close to a smile. I continued, I should have visited the office when nothing was broken. I should have told you I was proud before you had to ask. Nolan looked down. I was proud when you got the first client, I said. I was proud when you hired Celeste. I was proud every time somebody told me you had done good work, and I pretended that was what I expected. Why would you pretend? Because I thought confidence was part of my job. He looked at me then. The sentence belonged to both of us. We knew it. I'm proud of you now, I said. Not because you lost the contract correctly, because you're building the company again without trying to turn us into a wall behind it. His eyes reddened. He blinked and looked toward the window. I don't know what to say. You can let it sit. I'm not good at that. Neither am I. Lena reached across the table and rested her hand over his. He turned his palm beneath hers and held on. We did not solve 9 years in 1 cup of coffee. Nolan still looked wounded when the conversation went quiet. I still wanted to explain myself beyond usefulness. Lena still watched both of us for signs that we were replacing honesty with a project. But when Nolan stood to leave, he asked whether Saturday morning worked for removing the bench top. Ask Brooke, Lena said. She helped paint the place. Nolan took out his phone. I can call her. Look at that, I said. Direct communication. Don't make it weird. It's been weird for decades. We're reducing it gradually. Brooke arrived Saturday at 9 carrying work gloves and the same suspicious expression she used whenever Nolan and I stood near tools together. Who's in charge? She asked. No one, Lena said. That's the experiment. The bench top had 6 bolts, 2 of which had rusted enough to develop historical significance. Nolan sprayed them with penetrating oil. I waited. You're not going to suggest heat? He asked. Do you want me to? No. Then I won't. Brooke lay on the floor beneath the bench with a wrench. I can hear both of you aging. The first 4 bolts came out. The 5th required heat. Nolan handed me the torch without comment. We lifted the maple top onto padded supports in the driveway. Without it, the metal frame looked incomplete, but still useful. I had already chosen lumber for a replacement top. Nolan offered to help build it. I said I would ask when I was ready. Before loading the old top into his car, he ran his hand across the surface. "The model should go with it," he said. "It's in your mother's room. Then it can stay." Lena brought it out anyway. The crooked cardboard building sat in her hands beside the soccer trophy Nolan had forgotten to take a second time. "Ask," she told him. Nolan smiled. "Can I have the model?" "Yes." "And the trophy?" "Absolutely." He took both. The invitation to Hawthorne arrived 2 weeks later in a plain envelope. No architectural rendering, no promise about the future. Just an address, a Friday evening, and the words, "Open Studio," written beneath Nolan's name. Lena pinned it to the refrigerator. "You want to go?" I asked. "Yes." "So do I." That was almost easy. We arrived 10 minutes after the listed time because Lena said arriving first would make Nolan nervous and arriving late would make me nervous, so 10 minutes represented a marital compromise. The old drafting studio had changed without pretending to be new. The brick walls were clean. The concrete floor had been sealed but not covered. Original drafting tables stood beneath the north windows. Nolan's project boards hung from simple rails instead of polished display panels. Celeste sat at a real reception desk near the entrance. Though when she saw us, she stood and hugged Lena. "You survived," I told her. So did the printer. It occupied a room at the rear behind a closed door. Nothing dimmed when it turned on. Marcus came over wearing his white sneakers. There was a gray streak near one toe. "You've let yourself go," I said. "I'm trying to be less controlled." Brooke stood near the refreshments with paint on one sleeve of her jacket. "You wore that on purpose," Nolan told her. "I earned it." The room held employees, clients, friends, and several people I did not know. No one applauded when Lena and I entered. No one asked us to stand beside a sign or endorse a plan. We were guests. Nolan gave a short toast near the middle of the evening. He thanked his team for working from bedrooms, stairwells, shared tables, and one garage with excellent electrical supervision. Celeste raised her glass toward me. He thanked Brooke for painting, Lena for the food she had brought without being asked, and me for something he called constructive refusal. "I'm putting that on a plaque," Calvin whispered beside me. I had invited him. Nolan had said I could bring anyone I wanted. The speech lasted less than 2 minutes. Nolan did not call Hawthorne a family headquarters. He called it their office. Afterward, he found me near the north windows. "Come see the conference room," he said. The workbench stood in the center on black steel legs. Nolan had cleaned the maple without erasing it. Saw cuts, glue stains, pencil lines, and the burn mark remained beneath a clear finish. 8 chairs surrounded it. The crooked model sat on a shelf behind the table beside his soccer trophy. I pressed my palm against the wood. "Well?" he asked. "The center support is good. Dad? It's a good table. Thank you, I'm proud of you." He looked down at the workbench, then back at me. This time, he did not ask what part I meant. "Thank you," he said. Lena and Brooke joined us. Celeste called Nolan from the doorway because someone wanted to meet him. He turned to go, then stopped. "We're ordering dinner after everybody leaves," he said. "Do you want to stay?" He asked all 3 of us. Brooke looked at Lena. Lena looked at me. "We'd like that," I said. Nolan pulled out a chair for his mother before returning to his guests. I sat at the table where my son had once built something crooked and brought it to me because he believed I could make it stand. It was not my house, and nobody needed me to fix anything. We stayed because he had asked.